Warhammer x LOTM, The Black Emperor by author Jiao Chao Mo Chapter 26-50. Chapter 26, The Mad Pukachi Seeking More Reads. Buxa, dressed in a red robe, meticulously reported to Ning Lu. My king, my plan to rebuild the security force will recruit 12,000 people. Among them, about 3,000 are from the originally unofficial Upper Nest arbiters. Because they are not nobles, they cannot enter the arbitration court and are unwilling to go to the lower nest. They can only be affiliated with the security force to handle cases such as worker disputes. But these arbiters all have varying degrees of experience. In 5 work cycles, I will be able to complete their training. The specific training projects and working hours are. Ning Lu nodded in satisfaction after listening to the report. Buxa, you will serve as the captain of the Tezvok security force, effective immediately. My king, I will do my utmost to rebuild the security force within a month. Buxa said excitedly. He finally had a chance to show his talent. In the past, this position was held by the Bolslav king's illegitimate son. As Yelena led 6 assassins and Buxa out of the palace, Bukayo stepped out of the fast attack boat in the shantytown next to Luke Bo Hive City. The residents of the shantytown turned their heads and looked over, and Bukayo noticed their greedy eyes. He immediately drew his laser pistol from his waist and at the same time gave orders to the subordinates Howard had arranged for him. Attack. 18 minutes later, Bukayo plunged his short knife into a mutant's hand. Speak. Where is there a passage to sneak into Luke Bo Hive City? A moment later, after getting the desired information from the 3 captives, he said to the captain next to him, who was wearing gold and white trim. Then, Bukayo, carrying a backpack taller than himself, walked alone towards Luke Bo. You wait in the shantytown, I'll go in alone. I wish you a smooth journey. The captain looked at Bukayo's back, his eyes full of fear. He had never seen such a terrifying and ruthless young man, he suddenly remembered. The new king seemed a bit shorter than him before, it's truly terrifying. If their hair and eye colors weren't different, I would even suspect they were brothers. However, now the new king looks like a deity. 8 work cycles later, during the night Kyle shift. Tezvok Hive, Water Guild A167 Reservoir, number 5 Water Tower. Ning Lu stood on the nest tower, standing steadily in the howling cold wind. Rolsliv, who was beside him, also stood in the cold wind, but he needed to wear a breathing mask. The one who keeps jumping into the water, and is dragged out after losing consciousness, is the best performing among the new recruits. His name is Chznney, 33 years old, and both of his parents are factory technicians. Besides swimming, he ranks first in every training project, even surpassing many veterans. He is also the only captain I have appointed among the new recruits. Ning Lu nodded slightly, watching the persistent Chznney shake off his subordinates and jump into the pool again. His white body, somewhat swollen from prolonged exposure to water, quickly sank into the water. Only then did the soldiers wandering around dare to dive into the water and drag him out. Good, strong body and firm will. In the subsequent battles, his company will follow me. As you command, my king. Ning Lu's communicator rang. He found that it was from Bukayo and said to Rolsliv, you come with me to listen to Bukayo's briefing. Upon returning to the palace, Ning Lu saw the young man waiting in the side hall. His expression was normal, without any sign of fatigue. My lord, Bukayo connected the data pad to the cogitator. The ruling family of Luke Bo is the Piontkovsky family, and the current king is Pukachi. The Sosvorid people are devout followers of the Omniscia. They believe that the flesh is weak and machines are eternal. Pukachi is even more extreme. He forces everyone around him to undergo mechanical renovation. Pukachi controls a direct armed force of 15,000 people. All of these people have undergone bionic modifications, which consumed a lot of wealth, and is also the reason why he cannot expand his scale. Ning Lu looked at the projection. The body was made of streamlined metal, painted red. His left arm was modified into a folding mechanical knife, and his right arm was a mechanical claw. There was no human feature visible on his face, and dangerous red light flickered in his eyes. The scene shifted. A tall man with broad shoulders and a neat golden short haircut held a long sword, swiftly cutting off the head of an enemy who was attacking him with a swinging mechanical right arm. My king, it is worth noting that this Thierry, his father Count Vieira, refused to undergo mechanical renovation, affecting the family's reproduction, and was twisted off his head by the Mad Pukachi's mechanical claw. After that, Thierry has been leading the remaining guards of his Vieira family, conducting guerrilla warfare in the lower nest, attacking Piontkovsky's supply lines, and even launching several attacks on the upper nest. Pukachi launched several large-scale cleansing operations, but Thierry always avoided them in time. I believe someone from the families in the upper nest who are dissatisfied with the cruel rule sent him messages. Bukayo swiped his hand, bringing up a series of images. Although Thierry is only 24 years old, he is already Vostronia's most famous bounty hunter. It is said that he has mastered the Osber Vyathi way to the extreme and is the strongest swordmaster. Rolslev, hearing this, stared intently at the golden-haired nobleman in the holographic projection. He takes on missions in several Hive cities, such as Hive City No. 1, and is able to complete every mission. This is also the main source of income for the armed forces he leads, the Free Liberators. Most of these missions are issued by the kings of the Hive cities around Luke Bo. They have irreconcilable ideological and interest conflicts with the extreme Pukachi. It is certain that the Piontkovsky family has no allies. After listening to the briefing, Ning Lu immediately understood Bukayo's emphasis on introducing Thierry. You think I should cooperate with Thierry Vieira to attack Pukachi? My lord is wise, that is exactly it. If you can subdue Thierry, you will not only gain an armed force familiar with Luke Bo, but also a capable general, and quickly gain the support of the Sosvorid people after the conquest. Ning Lu tapped the table with his finger. Can you find him within 4 work cycles? Bukayo smiled confidently. My lord, please leave it to me, I will not disappoint you. You set off immediately. I will contact you after I arrive at Luke Bo. As you wish, my lord. Bukayo immediately put away the data pad. After leaving the palace, he called the Fend captain, who had just had a hearty meal and was resting on a comfortable large bed. Ning Lu looked at Rolslev. Is your regiment ready? My king, not a single severely wounded soldier has retired, they are all willing to continue fighting with you until death. Although the new recruits are young, they are all highly motivated and eager to achieve great things. He said with certainty, I believe you also don't want to hear that we are not ready, you have decided to launch an attack immediately. Immediately assemble your regiment, the night Kyle shift will depart, target Luke Bo. As you command, my king. Ning Lu then sent communication messages to Howard and Yelena. Curie time, conduct a court discussion. During Curie time, in the renovated court hall 2 floors below the top floor, Ning Lu sat on his custom-made throne. The throne was made of Miguel steel and was entirely black. Behind the throne, 33 black long spears extended, with a golden crown strung on the central one, that was the Bolslov family's crown. Below the throne, the patriarchs of the various families stood on the left, and Yelena's newly established cabinet was on the right. Howard, you give the briefing first. Chapter 27, The Arbitrator. Howard, dusty from his return from Hadmansi Dome, stood at the first position on the left. My lord, I have recruited workers from the surrounding domes, and all factories in Hadmansi Dome are currently operational again. During the night Kyle shift, I will announce the work standards for each position at the Magneto Steel plant and give a speech to convey your will to all workers. Very good, Ning Lu said, looking at Yelena. Yelena, it's your turn. My king, the Hive City Guard has completed its first recruitment. After Busick conducted their initial training, order in the upper nest has been restored. Busick noticed the looks that nobles, who had previously disdained him, now cast his way. He smiled and puffed out his chest. The strategy Ning Lu and Yelena agreed upon was for him not to appear first. Instead, they would create a relaxed atmosphere to let the various families see the benefits, and then he would appear to establish rules and ensure efficient cooperation through contracts. He and the cabinet ministers tacitly avoided mentioning this matter. After inquiring about road reconstruction and other issues, he announced, "I will attack Luke Bo Hive City during the night Kyle shift." The nobles and courtiers exchanged glances, they had not heard a whisper of this before. Many now remembered that Commander Rolslev, who had risen with the new king, was absent from this hastily called court meeting. Howard felt everyone's gaze converge on him. After becoming an arbitrator, he knew that Ning Lu certainly possessed more miraculous power, and he was also confident that Luke Bo could not contend with this war god. He ignored their gazes, Ning Lu's trust was more important than anything. He yearned for the next blessing. Everyone's gaze then shifted to Yelena. She was an earl and the founder of the cabinet. The countess felt another strand of her hair turn white. She spoke with a sigh of helplessness. "My lord, aren't you a bit too hasty? Wouldn't starting with Mazov be more appropriate? Too slow." Ning Lu rejected Yelena's suggestion. "Since I have the ability, there's no need to beat around the bush." Everyone felt the confidence radiating from him, not as a judgment but as a prophecy. The court meeting concluded. 10 minutes before the night Kyle shift, Ning Lu stepped out of the nest tower. His gaze passed over Rozicki and landed on a truck surrounded by servitors. "Your heavy halberd has arrived. The armor is estimated to require another 14 work cycles." Ning Lu nodded. He stepped forward to the truck and reached out to pull out the deep black alloy heavy halberd. A servitor opposite him heard a strong gust of wind above his head. He used the force to look up but only saw a towering back. After leaving a single word, "Not bad," he strode away. At the same time, Howard also rushed back to Handman's dome. He took a silver cup from the captain of the guard and tilted his head back, drinking the purified water transported from the upper nest. He suddenly thought of something, covered the cup, and, instead of handing it back to the guard, gave an order. "Send my dinner to the high platform at the factory." "Yes, Lord Earl." The captain of the guard immediately dispatched a subordinate to carry out the order. As Ning Lu boarded the specially designed open-top war chariot, Howard also ascended the high platform. The thousands of workers below looked up at the noble on the platform, as if watching a strange creature. Howard did not wear a gas mask. He frowned, sniffing the foul air mixed with the stench of copper and oil. But it was only habitual discomfort, not physical discomfort. His physically enhanced body quickly overcame this discomfort. He smiled. "My fellow workers, I bring you good news that will change your destiny." A worker, dressed in rags and covered in oil, picked his ear with his pinky finger. "Noble master, what good news do you have? Is it a pot of stewed rat meat? I heard that King Ning Lu, who just ascended the throne, gave workers rat meat soup, and one worker even got a tail. That taste, just thinking about it is intoxicating." He and dozens of workers around him swallowed their saliva. At the same moment, many workers in other factories, watching Howard's speech via video screens, also had their eyes light up. "Quiet, you." The captain of the guard's face turned pale with anger. He drew the laser pistol from his waist, wanting to teach these scum of the lower nest a lesson and show them the respect due to Lord Earl. Howard reached out to stop his subordinate. A flicker of anger crossed his eyes, but he quickly calmed down, his smile still in place. "You've only eaten rat meat and think it's the best delicacy in the world." He picked up the aluminum meal box at his feet, opened the lid, and an aroma immediately filled the air. All the workers craned their necks. "What is that?" "This is tuna, from the Sea of Melody, an ocean world. Now, even in the upper nest, very few people get to eat it, but now you have the chance." Howard was not deceiving them. The allied forces of Vostronia's hive cities had not gained an advantage against the Xenos pirates, and the impact of disrupted transportation was already beginning to show in the upper nest. While workers in other factories scoffed and questioned, the Magneto steel plant fell silent. The workers were gradually swayed by Howard's convincing words and smile. In their eyes, the blonde noble was no longer a haughty noble master. They quieted down, listening to the arbitrator's speech. The guard captain was satisfied with the change in the lower nest scum, yet also felt somewhat strange. He suddenly heard his master raise his voice and say imperiously, "On behalf of King Ning Lu, I announce that from this moment on, a new rationing system will be implemented. Each type of work will have quantitative requirements. Anyone who completes their task will receive a portion of cadaver starch. Those who exceed their tasks will receive corresponding compensation proportionally. Workers in other factories disdainfully spat onto the ground and at nearby machines. They're lying, aren't they? When have we ever gotten paid based on how much we do? Exactly. Ever since the servants of the Omniscia abandoned the lower nest, those gang thugs only know how to beat us with sticks. When have they ever let us eat our fill? I think, even if it's true, the standards will be impossible to meet. They're just tricking us into working harder. Inside the Magneto steel plant, the many workers did not make a fuss. An invisible aura seemed to emanate from Howard, making them instinctively want to obey. Howard walked towards the high platform, speaking as he went. You must think the standards are too high to meet. Now I'll tell you, as long as you put in a little effort, you can absolutely do it. The guard captain quickly followed, gripping his weapon and nervously watching the surrounding scum. The blonde noble, walking into the crowd, was not nervous. In addition to spiritual enhancement, the arbitrator possessed persuasive charisma and sufficient authority, as well as excellent combat skills. Moreover, he was wearing master-crafted power armor. Even if the workers rioted, Howard was confident he could fight his way out. The workers did not move. Their gaze followed the blonde noble. Chapter 28, Gambling Match. Howard said, walking to the scorched workshop near the steel plant's feeding area, and spoke loudly. Each work cycle is divided into 2 shifts, with a work duration of 16 hours. For each work cycle, there is 1 hour of maintenance time, and a rotating shift system is implemented. He walked to the front of the number 2 coking oven and continued. The first stage of steelmaking is coking, where coking coal is mixed and crushed, then added to the coking oven to produce hot coke and crude coke oven gas through a dry distillation process. Coking oven number 1 has 53 holes, coking oven number 2 has 53 holes, and coking oven number 3 has 31 holes, totaling 137 holes. The coke pushing sequence standard follows 5 to 4. The coal loading time is 16 minutes, and a single coke pushing time is 11 minutes. The coke pushing sequence is the order in which coal is loaded and coke is discharged from the carbonization chambers of a set of coking ovens. After research, Fen's skilled workers improved it, reducing the waiting time and significantly shortening the working hours from 26 minutes to 11 minutes. They demonstrated it at Howard's signal. The coking time for each oven is 15 hours, and the coke quenching and screening time is 34 minutes. The total oven operation time is 16 hours. Each of the 2 shifts should complete 1 cycle, with a production of 137 ovens each. The standard coke production for each shift in 1 work cycle is 2,013 tons. The workers all looked at a foreman who had previously served as a foreman in the coking workshop of the nearby Katowice Dome steel plant. The bald foreman scratched his head and nodded slightly. Although time was tight, a skilled and coordinated team working at full capacity could indeed complete it. Subsequently, Howard introduced the standards for each process one by one. The workers realized that although the standards were challenging, they were indeed achievable, and gradually began to believe his words. The blonde noble returned to the high platform and continued. This production cycle is the first production cycle for the Magneto steel plant to resume production. I will give you time. As long as you can complete it before the next night Kyle shift arrives, you will receive a corpse starch ration. The first team to finish will receive tuna, bread, and water. My meals are like this food, which 80% of the upper nest people cannot eat. Those who eat it can say in the future that they have eaten better food than the people in the upper nest. The bald foreman was the first to react, slapping his head hard. What are we waiting for? Is it true or false? We'll know if we try. What was that fish called again? Howard said with a smile, tuna. Those who want to eat tuna, get moving with this old man. You, and you, the 3 of you look the strongest. You will be the coal loading and coke pushing team. Get moving immediately. Remember, load it full, level, solid, and even. With 4 hours left until the night Kyle shift, the bald foreman shouted. Done. He released the cart and quickly walked towards the high platform. All the workers stopped what they were doing and looked towards the high platform. Howard gestured to the captain of the guard, signaling for the foreman of the soot-covered cooking team to come up. Don't rush, what's yours won't run away. I'll have the chef warm it up for you. No need, the foreman said hastily, it's good to eat cold. He took the meal box and water bottle under the envious gazes of all the workers. Thank you, your lordship, praise your lordship, he said repeatedly, holding the reward securely, and turned to walk down. At the same moment, workers from other factories widened their eyes. They watched the foreman distribute the food to his subordinates and almost dropped their jaws as they swallowed it. A thought couldn't help but arise in their minds. So that noble was telling the truth. Howard shook his head. Since he had promised, he would not go back on his word. The honor of the Fen family was worth far more than tuna and pure water. He pinched his brow and looked down. He noticed that everyone's aura showed a red enthusiasm and excitement, and a white positive uplift. After closing his psychic vision, the blonde noble stood on the high platform observing everyone, finding that even though they were tired, they moved powerfully and quickly, as if injected with a stimulant. Is this what my lord meant by mobilizing the workers' enthusiasm? He nodded with satisfaction and said to the captain of the guard. You stay and distribute the corpse starch. Remember to follow the standards. Then, Howard walked towards the newly expanded lounge where Ning Lu once lived. After closing the door, the blonde noble yawned. He was not sleepless, like Bukayo, and not having rested for nearly 2 work cycles made him feel tired. Just as Howard was making a breakthrough in the Handman-Sea Dome, Ning Lu met Thierry Vieira in the shantytown outside Luke Bo Hive City. Thierry was about 23 or 24 years old. He was tall and well-proportioned, with smooth muscle lines and short blonde hair that accentuated his chiseled face. His eyes were deep and bright, looking in astonishment at the giant holding a heavy halberd in front of him. Thierry instinctively tightened his grip on the ancestral longsword at his waist, and he asked in a deep voice. You are Ning Lu, the new king of Tezvok. I will be the king of Vostronia, and you shall submit to me. Ning Lu stepped forward. Thierry felt immense pressure, hearing undeniable confidence in the giant's words, as if what he said was the truth. For thousands of years, hundreds of kings have tried to conquer Vostronia, and none have ever succeeded. How will you do it, with less than 3,000 men behind you? You can't even take Luke Bo. You are mistaken, Ning Lu said in a deep voice, my confidence comes from my strength. I hear you are known as Vostronia's greatest swordsman. I'd like to see how capable you are. Thierry smiled confidently, combat doesn't depend on size. If I win, will you, the so-called king of Vostronia, submit to me? Since you are so confident, how about the loser serves the winner forever? Hearing Ning Lu's bold gamble, Thierry thought to himself. I have killed over a dozen Ogren. Ning Lu is just a bit taller. I can definitely defeat him. If I can truly control Tezvok, then my revenge is hopeful. I will not be as reckless and arrogant as him. I will continue guerrilla harassment and build up troops, and I can definitely defeat Pukachi. If he can truly defeat me, then he might be able to kill Pukachi, and it wouldn't be impossible for me to serve him, but that is absolutely impossible. My king, please allow me to fight him first. Rolslev stared intently at Thierry, speaking with strong fighting spirit. Thierry glanced at the dark-skinned strong man, whose skin was blackened from long-term labor. A worker by origin. Thierry frowned slightly. Ning Lu, the giant, at least looked formidable, but this man just looked like a strong man, and he dared to challenge him. Does he represent you? No one can represent my king. Rolslev said loudly, taking out a laser pistol from his waist. This pistol is a finely crafted product of the Bolslav family. If you win against me, it's yours. It is indeed a good gun. Thierry nodded slightly, I'll fight you first. He drew his power sword and pressed the control device on the hilt, activating the disintegration field. Rolslev activated his chainsword at the same time, and the two walked towards each other. A cold glint flashed in Thierry's eyes. He suddenly took a step forward, the simplest, Osber via, first thrust, like a shining fiery snake, lunging towards Roleslev's chest. If you verify the output of this chapter, please calculate according to the parameters I set, and the resulting coke output will be roughly accurate. I have investigated steel plants and know that the current coke pushing sequences used are 9-2, 5-2, and 2-1, not 5-4, and the coking time is also much shorter than currently. The data are all reasonable increases based on actual production capacity. Chapter 29 inches Osber via. Roleslev parried the thrust with a slash. Thierry was startled, his opponent had actually blocked his fierce strike. Roleslev frowned. He felt a small scorch mark, no bigger than a grain of rice, on his chainsword, indicating that the weapon he picked up from the officer was inferior to his opponent's inherited power sword. A glint flashed in Thierry's eyes, and he flicked his wrist. The second move of the Osber via, a backhand thrust. The power sword rotated like a nimble snake, grazing the chainsword and aiming directly for Roleslev's arm. Roleslev did not dodge. His weapon was inferior, so he had to end the fight quickly. He stepped forward and retreated to avoid the thrust, simultaneously executing a sword move from the 23rd form of Osber via, which he had practiced tens of thousands of times. Although he didn't even know which form of the Osber via it belonged to, he had completely mastered its technique of overcoming the strong with the weak. The chainsword roared as it slashed towards Thierry's shoulder. Thierry's eyes glowed brightly. It was the first time he had encountered an opponent who had mastered the 23rd form to such an extent, even unconstrained by the original creed. His opponent's slash not only struck a weakness but also anticipated his own previous attack. When Thierry realized this, flames burned in his eyes. Roleslev had transformed from a warm-up opponent into a formidable foe he needed to defeat with all his might. He used the 6th form of Osber via, swinging the power sword in his hand, forcibly twisting his arm, and raising the blade to parry the chainsword. Chznney, wearing bulletproof armor and standing behind Ning Lu and the company commander, watched the thrilling sword fight intently with his blue eyes. Commander Roleslev's every strike was precise, ruthless, and concise. This is the commander's true strength. When I challenged him before, he didn't use his full power. If he had used his full power then, I wouldn't have lasted a minute. What surprised Chznney even more was that Roleslev's fierce offensive didn't gain an advantage. His opponent's sword was like a living thing, its agile attacks like a large net, always forcing the commander to change his moves. Realizing this, he couldn't help but worry about the commander. Ning Lu had already deduced the outcome of the battle, and he also gained a clearer understanding of the strength of Sequence 9. A Sequence 9 Beyander can push ordinary people to their limits, but there are too many extraordinary individuals among humans, they are not ordinary mortals. Perhaps if Roleslev fully digested the potion and became a true warrior, he would have a chance at victory, but he is no match for Thierry now. Moreover, his weapon is also inadequate. That one powerful, charged strike failed, and there will be no other opportunity. Ning Lu's superhuman brain simultaneously absorbed Thierry's every movement and every attack. Within 10 minutes, he had completely absorbed the Osber via, the crystallization of Vostronia people's swordsmanship over millennia, and further extrapolated it to an unparalleled height. Roleslev lost. Ning Lu caught the wail of the chainsword. As he sighed inwardly, Thierry seized the opportunity and used the killing move of the 33rd form of Osber via. The power sword became like a heavy hammer, delivering continuous striking attacks. Roleslev, on the other hand, used the 6th form, which he had learned from his opponent's attacks, to desperately block the onslaught. However, Thierry's furious attacks were like the legendary tides, crashing wave after wave upon the chainsword. With a loud bang, the fine weapon shattered. The roaring fragments scattered everywhere, and Roleslev gave a wry smile. I lost. He silently walked back. The Vostronia 1st Regiment warriors' faces were grim, their commander had been defeated. Thierry gasped, taking several deep breaths before recovering. Although only 10 minutes had passed, the physical and mental energy he expended surpassed that of a major battle. If his opponent's weapon hadn't shattered, the fight would have continued. After a few seconds, he silently picked up his laser pistol, and a majestic voice echoed in his ears. "I'll give you half an hour to rest." "Good," Thierry replied. Before the duel, he wouldn't have accepted, but now he couldn't help but feel a hint of doubt about himself. One of Ning Lu's nameless subordinates is actually so powerful, and he himself seems to excel in combat. Can I really defeat him? 10 minutes later, Thierry walked towards the giant, his gaze firm, having regained his conviction to win. As he took his fourth step, he suddenly lunged forward swiftly. Ning Lu didn't move. He saw clearly that just as Thierry was about to enter the heavy halberd's attack range, he suddenly changed direction, circling him with rapid leaps. He understood. Thierry anticipated that he would use his strength advantage to launch a furious attack when he entered his range. He wanted to exploit the opening exposed when Ning Lu turned during his leaps to launch an attack. Ning Lu moved, swinging his heavy halberd. To Thierry's surprise, the giant's attack was not furious. He delivered a precise thrust with the tip of the halberd. Thierry's expression changed. He felt that this attack contained the swift thrust of the first form of Osbervaya, as well as the direct strike to a weakness of the 23rd form. He couldn't even parry and could only roll awkwardly on the ground to avoid the attack. As Thierry scrambled to his feet, the heavy halberd swept towards him. He gritted his teeth, tensed his arms, and met it. The expected collision didn't happen. Ning Lu flicked his wrist, and the heavy halberd spun like a windmill. The strong wind it generated had already disrupted his sword momentum, and the halberd tip thrust directly at his chest. Thierry desperately leapt backward. His chest felt cold, and his armor had been cut through. He's using the second form. No, it's also fused with the 23rd form. How did he do that? As Thierry flew backward, his heart pounded. The giant didn't use his strength advantage, he skillfully fused and applied Osbervaya. He used the Vostronia people's swordsmanship, but it was more than that. After landing, Thierry ignored the blood dripping from his chest. He fiercely swung his sword and lunged forward, the silver light of the power soared like a storm. After 33 continuous attacks, Thierry was thrown out like a kite with a broken string. He knelt on one knee. "I surrender." Thierry smiled self-deprecatingly. He already knew that one strike from Ning Lu could defeat him, but he had used skill to break every profound mystery of his Osbervaya. He wants to break every profound mystery I've mastered. He wants to force me to realize that the gap between us is not just strength, but also skill. This was a complete and utter defeat, he said convinced. "King Ning Lu, I swear by the honor of the Vieira family and my soul, as long as you can kill Pukachi, I will serve you forever. I accept your fealty." Ning Lu said in a deep voice, "Tend to your wounds, then lead the way." "Yes." As Thierry walked towards his subordinates, the Vostoinia 1st Regiment warriors finally came to their senses. Their morale soared, especially the new recruits. Having witnessed Ning Lu's divine power firsthand, they believed this battle would surely be victorious. Chznney looked up at Ning Lu's back, his eyes filled with admiration. 5 minutes later, Thierry's wounds were covered with medical gel. After changing into a set of armor in a military tent, he walked up to Ning Lu. "Sir, please follow me." Chapter 30, Maglev Train. The Vostoinia 1st Regiment followed Thierry's team, infiltrating the bottom nest from an abandoned mine shaft. Thierry Vieira walked up to Ning Lu and offered a suggestion. "My lord, we now have nearly 4,000 men, and your body is immense. To reach the upper nest quickly before the crazy king reacts, we must raid a train station and seize a maglev train. Luke Bo Hive City has a transportation system unlike any other hive city. Each maglev train is 1.6093 kilometers long and can transport personnel, vehicles, or supplies at high speed." Thierry spoke with hatred. It is precisely because he possesses this technology that the crazy king can maintain his rule. When I waged guerrilla warfare, the biggest threat also came from him. Pukachi can reach any area of the hive city within 3 standard hours from the nest tower. Fortunately, the maglev train is too fast. Once a carriage separates, it takes several hours or even several work cycles for it to finally stop due to friction. I will hijack the carriages directly at the channel fork in the road. Maglev technology was obtained by the ancestors of the Piontkovsky family excavating ruins. They acquired the sacred construction template for the maglev train from it, and this unique technology is also the foundation of their family. Ning Lu nodded in approval of Thierry's plan. Where is the nearest train station? Thierry took out his data slate, and after operating it for a while, 2 routes appeared on it, bending upwards and moving forward. My lord, the closest is D404 Lai Chzon. Along this route, the marching distance is 20.5 kilometers. But it requires passing through a narrow ventilation shaft, which you cannot traverse. You can only take this detour route, with a marching distance of 31.4 kilometers. Ning Lu fell into contemplation, calculating and formulating a plan at an astonishing speed in his mind. A moment later, he spoke. Send a small team to lead the way. He looked at the eager company commanders behind him, then looked past them at Chznney. 7th Company, you have earned this glorious opportunity to capture this maglev train station. Yes, my king, the 7th Company commander responded loudly amidst the envious gazes of others. Thierry scanned the crowd, secretly surprised. This King Ning Lu's subordinates seemed to have an extraordinary reverence for him. He rose in a short time. How did he achieve this? Thierry looked at the giant, and then understood in his heart, a Ning Lu like a god of war would indeed inspire worship. Chznney gripped the laser rifle in his hand, his eyes full of fighting spirit. The opportunity had arrived. He noticed Rolslev pulling the company commander aside, instructing him a few words. Then the company commander, who had lost his right eye but hadn't replaced it with a bionic eye like others, turned his head and looked over. The company commander, with a suture running through his right eye, walked back and said loudly, "Move out." Chznney immediately followed the company commander and the guide, walking through dirty sewage pits and crawling through narrow pipes, stopping about 1.4 kilometers from D404 Lai Chzon. Thierry's subordinate, sent to lead the way, whispered to the 7th Company commander beside him. D404 Lai Chzon has a total of 5 teams, 2 of which are guard teams, on rotating shifts. Each guard team has 125 guards. Then, he opened his data slate again to introduce the station's architectural structure to the commanders of the 7th Company. Every station in the lower nest is built to a standard called D-standard, with identical architectural structures, all consisting of guard rooms, platforms, entrances and exits, and other areas. After listening, the 7th Company commander nodded. His single eye looked at the station, then returned to the data slate screen, and after a moment, he spoke. 4th Platoon, you are responsible for attacking the guard room. Chznney, your squad is responsible for the assault. Chznney pounded his chest with a fist, amidst the envious gazes of the others. After assigning tasks one by one, the company commander said to all the commanders, "Calibrate your time. Attack in 10 minutes. Now, like in training, infiltrate your tactical attack points." He looked at everyone, making sure they all performed the same gesture. Arms extended to the side, elbows bent, wrists raised to cheek height and fisted, palms facing the one giving the command. The 7th Company commander whispered, "Move out." Chznney immediately returned to his squad, leading his men to quickly approach the tactical attack point using surrounding stone pillars and other terrain features, following concealed approach tactics. The 7th Company launched their attack simultaneously at the scheduled time. Chznney's laser rifle fired a beam, hitting a guard's head on one side of the guard room entrance, while another marksman in the squad took care of the other. He pulled out a blinding grenade, lunged forward to the guard room, kicked open the iron door, threw the grenade with force, then rolled and leaned his back against the wall. Blinding light flashed in the guard room. The assault team members, wearing goggles, were unaffected. Chznney rushed into the guard room first and pulled the trigger. The guards raised their weapons, attacking wildly, but blinded, they struggled in vain. 14 minutes later, the battle ended. The 7th Company occupied the station, with only 2 warriors unfortunately killed by stray bullets during the combat. Ning Lu's main force then arrived at the station. He approached the 7th Company warriors. "Well done, you completed the mission." Ning Lu's praise made the 7th Company warriors puff out their chests. The team then came to the platform. When the maglev train was not running, it was tightly connected to the tracks. Its appearance did not differ much from an ordinary train, but its internal structure had special features. The carriages were connected to the cockpit via couplers and to each other, because they required a control panel to drive them. "All aboard." Ning Lu gave the order. The maglev train was designed to transport vehicles, so 3 of its carriages were taller. Ning Lu pulled open the carriage connected to the cockpit and entered it. The height was just enough for him to stand upright. Bukayo, Rolslev, the 7th Company commander, and Thierry also boarded this carriage, while others boarded the subsequent carriages. Thierry's technicians boarded the cockpit, and one of them brought up the control panel. The control panel consisted of levers, wheels, and intricately carved dials. The technician pulled a lever while reciting a prayer. The sleeping machine spirit was awakened, and the maglev technology activated the recessed levitation plates, causing the entire train to slowly rise and hover 2.54 centimeters above the track. "My lord, requesting departure." After consulting Ning Lu, Thierry gave the order to the technician. "Depart." The technician pushed the lever, and the propulsion unit accelerated its rotation at an astonishing speed, propelling the maglev train into motion. Along the way, Ning Lu listened to the 7th Company commander's brief, specifically asking about Chznney's performance. Upper Nest B-19 Station. The station master was leisurely drinking water when suddenly an alarm sounded. He frowned and picked up the intercom. "Station master, it's bad. There's a train that's not on the timetable, and it's approaching at high speed. Initiate emergency interception procedures." The alarm blared throughout the station, and the garrison was urgently dispatched. They hastily arrived at the platform and raised barbed wire. The high-speed train instantly broke through the blockade. The garrison captain naturally knew that barbed wire could not stop a high-speed steel monster. He breathed a sigh of relief when he saw the train hijackers stop the train, and he shouted loudly, "Prepare to attack." The next moment, he widened his eyes, watching the giant leap from the train. Official setting: maglev trains, also written as mag-trans, or mag-trans, or 1 mile long. Note from the priest: 1 mile equals 1.6093 kilometers. Imperial magnetic levitation vehicles that run on fixed tracks. When the machine spirits of these vehicles are awakened, the train's maglev technology causes its recessed levitation plates to suspend the vehicle itself 1 inch. Note from the priest: 1 inch equals 2.54 centimeters above the track. The above translation is from the Bilibili expert Nod 1. Praise the translation court. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And please support the author by link in description. Chapter 31, Crushing the Security Forces. What is that? The guard captain's eyes widened, and the next moment, the giant was already before him. Attack! He had just finished speaking when he was sent flying, tumbling several times before falling to his death. Thierry stepped down from the carriage, just in time to see Ning Lu charge, carving a wide path through the security forces. Everyone directly in his way was instantly killed, and those nearby were sent flying by the shockwave. His pupils contracted. Only then did he realize that Ning Lu's power was far more terrifying than he had imagined. He's like a god of war from the old night. If he hadn't wanted to subdue me, I wouldn't even have had a chance to strike before being flattened into a meat patty. Thierry no longer had any doubt about Ning Lu. This work cycle would be the Crazy King's doomsday. Monster. A god has descended to punish the Crazy King. Quote. The guards' morale collapsed. They screamed and fled in a frenzy. Pukachi's nest tower, lead the way. Ning Lu ignored them and said to Thierry, "My lord, the train station is only 25.4 kilometers from the Crazy King's nest tower. Please follow me." After advancing 3 kilometers, the team encountered resistance from the Hive City's security forces. Ning Lu's superhuman senses took in the entire security force, 4,100 people, more than the Tetzverk hives, with better equipment, and a support vehicle for every 100. Although this Pukachi is crazy, he's much more generous than Bolslov. These vehicles are nothing on the front lines, but they are still powerful riot control vehicles for the Hive City's security forces. He thought that only Thierry and Rolslev wore carapaced armor. His other subordinates would surely suffer considerable casualties when facing the heavy machine gun's suppressive fire. Ning Lu converted factors such as the number of friendly and enemy forces, firepower, and terrain into parameters, incorporating them into his constructed model to formulate a battle plan. The 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th companies, along with Thierry's subordinates, will deploy on the left flank. The other 6 companies will attack from the right flank. Aside from Rolslev and other elites, the Vostoinia 1st Regiment, composed of gangsters and upper nest workers, had less combat power than Thierry's team, which had been conducting guerrilla warfare for many years. After he assigned the 4 companies composed of new recruits to the left flank, the combat power was relatively balanced. The 6 companies composed of veterans also coordinated more tacitly, making it difficult for new recruit companies to integrate. Subsequently, Ning Lu charged first towards the enemy forces. He wanted to draw their firepower, especially the heavy machine gun fire. The security captain was greatly astonished to see the giant charge into his ranks, swinging his heavy halberd and sending a support vehicle flying with a single blow. Seeing the giant charging directly towards him, he quickly shouted, "Attack! Focus fire, aim at the monster, shoot him." Instantly, thousands of people aimed their weapons at Ning Lu. Ning Lu swung his heavy halberd, directly lifting a support vehicle and smashing it 5 meters ahead. Immediately, he swung his heavy halberd, and before the enemy soldiers on both sides could react, their upper bodies exploded amidst the bang 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 sounds. Advance! Attack! Rolslev had long anticipated this and issued the attack order. The new recruits from the 6 companies also launched their attack under the urging of their captains and the veterans beside them. The soldiers of the new 4th company were stunned for a moment before they came to their senses. Thierry, for a moment, couldn't understand when combat had become like this. Facing Ning Lu, do so-called tactics truly have meaning? What meaning does the swordsmanship I've practiced for so many years have? It wasn't until bullets ricocheted off his carapaced armor that he snapped back to reality. He glanced at the striding Ning Lu, who was advancing, and issued orders. Attack! Thierry's shout carried a hint of bitterness. In the past, his family's followers would have noticed their master's abnormality, but now everyone's attention was captivated by that towering figure. Ning Lu advanced while keeping an eye on the progress of the battle lines on both flanks. On the right flank, the veteran corps cooperated tacitly and were in high spirits. They steadily advanced under Rolslev's command. Bukayo moved alone on the edge of the formation. He used a silenced laser pistol to destroy the lumen lamps. Then, he moved forward in the darkness, in the shadows of buildings. No enemy noticed him, but every time he appeared, he took the life of an enemy commander, causing more and more enemies to fall into chaos. Thierry was somewhat distracted, but he was still the strongest combatant besides Ning Lu, the arrowhead of the left flank. The Vieira family soldiers were highly motivated, their eyes flashing with the fire of revenge, and their combat power was far superior to the new recruits in the 4 companies beside them. After a moment of confusion, the new recruits entered combat under the loud shouts of their commanders. Ning Lu drew most of the enemy's firepower, also causing them to face relatively dispersed and non-continuous attacks. Among them, the 7th Company, which had previously captured the train station, performed exceptionally well. Especially Chznney, whom Ning Lu observed closely, not only fired with unerring accuracy but also possessed command awareness, mobilizing his subordinates through loud shouts and seeking cooperation with other squads. Sandomierski, push forward and take out that bastard at your 11 o'clock. Warziniak, get back here and hold the line. Vasilevsky, I'll draw their fire for you, your squad will flank them. Ning Lu's attention returned to the front. He had already decided to train Chznney to become a sailor. Thierry was a born warrior, his potential far exceeding Roleslev's, but his loyalty still needed to be confirmed. His gaze fell upon the panicked, fleeing commander ahead. He moved his legs and began to run. After a 5-step run up, he leapt into the air. Immediately, his right foot heavily stomped on a support vehicle, using the momentum to leap further. Run. Step on the gas, damn it. The commander of the Luke Bo security forces cried out in terror, loudly urging the driver. The next moment, he felt his head enveloped by a shadow. He looked up in horror, his last thought being, it's over. Ning Lu smashed into the command vehicle, trampling the commander into a pulp. At the same time, he felt his spirituality become more lively and his body lighter. He clearly sensed that the barbarian digestion had reached a new node. The security forces completely collapsed. They threw down their weapons and scattered. Cleaning up the battlefield quickly concluded within 10 standard minutes. The Vostoinia 1st Regiment captured 3 support vehicles, and the Vieira family armed forces captured 2. Consumed ammunition was replenished. Thierry boarded a support vehicle, leading the way 3 meters to Ning Lu's front left. The Piontkovsky family's nest tower. Pukachi, whose body was devoid of flesh and blood, emitting a metallic tremor with every step, walked into the palace. Everyone immediately lowered their heads, especially the nobles who were not yet fully modified, whose bodies were already partially collapsing, and whose vision occasionally flickered with double images. They silently chanted in their hearts, "The crazy king can't see me, the crazy king can't see me." Pukachi sat on the iron throne. He raised his right arm, his mechanical claw pointing at a person in front of him, clad in a red robe that concealed his flesh and blood legs. "Muravsky, I already sent Mirzhayevsky's security team to intercept them. Why must you still disturb my experiment?" Upon hearing, experiment, everyone's bodies trembled slightly. "My king, I am truly sorry, but the enemies attacking the upper nest include not only the traitor Thierry Vieira but also a monster." Chapter 32, Death of the Crazy King. These are the combat footages captured by the surveillance cameras. Please take a look. Muravsky operated the data slate, displaying the surveillance footage to the crazy king. Pukachi's bionic eye rotated, looking at the enemy forces that had fought their way through the upper nest and were heading straight for the nest tower. After seeing the giant in the footage, his bionic eye flashed red light. Seconds later, Pukachi suddenly stood up. "Good. Excellent." Pukachi's scarlet bionic eye swept over everyone, and he said disdainfully, "Fools, you've seen it now. It's time for you to understand how fragile flesh and blood are. This fool thinks he's strong, but compared to me, who possesses a truly perfect body, he's nothing but a toy. Turn on the surveillance footage below the nest tower for me. You wastes, open your eyes and watch carefully." Then, Pukachi strode out of the palace. Everyone couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, with the same thought appearing in most people's minds. Omniscia above, please bless that giant to achieve victory and kill the crazy king. The moment the elevator landed, Pukachi impatiently crashed through the iron door and rushed out of the nest tower. As he ran, the scene of the battlefield came into his view. Pukachi discovered that his meticulously crafted Iron Legion, despite outnumbering the enemy several times over, held no advantage and was instead being beaten back steadily. This is illogical. His bionic eye flashed, and he immediately activated the dynamic scanner installed in his left eye to capture the situation of both sides on the battlefield. Pukachi first locked onto 2 targets, Thierry Vieira and another unfamiliar strong man, who were unstoppable as they charged into his Iron Legion. Pukachi lost interest in them after seeing that the analysis conclusion for both was a medium threat. He fully activated the scanner and finally captured the giant's movements. The next instant, the scanner suddenly crackled, and Pukachi lost vision in his left eye. Impossible. This is impossible. Pukachi's single eye looked at the giant. Someone had actually exceeded the scanner's analysis range, which was completely beyond his comprehension. His body trembled, and he strode directly towards the giant. Pukachi would never allow any existence that violated the truth. The blasphemous giant must be purified. Ning Lu noticed the mechanical man the moment he walked out of the nest tower and linked him to Luke Bo's identity as the Crazy King. He swung his heavy halberd, knocking down a group of enemies, and was about to kill the enemy leader first, but unexpectedly, Pukachi rushed towards him. Heretic, die! A buzzing sound, mixed with hissing electrical currents, came from Pukachi's sound synthesizer. His left arm was raised high, and a 3.2-meter-long folding blade, like a praying mantis, struck directly at Ning Lu's head. Ning Lu swung his arm and halberd to meet it. With a clang, the blade tip cut through the halberd shaft. The sharp mantis blade, which had consumed a large amount of wealth and undergone multiple quenchings and forging, gained the upper hand in the weapon clash. The mechanical arm gaining an advantage made the crackling noises in Pukachi's mind disappear for a moment. Machinery is indestructible. His voice abruptly stopped. A huge force suddenly came from the mantis blade. With a loud bang, the mantis blade shattered, and flying fragments shot towards several iron warriors running swiftly. A blade fragment pierced through one man's alloy armor, exploded his flesh and blood heart, and then protruded from his back. The rapidly rotating shaft at the connection point struck another man's throat, and blood gushed out like a spring. Errors, all errors. Pukachi heard the wailing of the machine. He swung his mechanical arm, striking towards Ning Lu. Ning Lu raised his left hand and gripped the Crazy King's fist. He forcefully swung his arm, and Pukachi lost control of his body, being swung into the air. Ning Lu used the Crazy King as a mechanical arm, swinging him to the left front, smashing several iron warriors into a pulp, and then swinging him to the rear, sweeping away a group of enemies. Feeling that the weapon in his hand was unexpectedly useful, he immediately rushed towards the densest crowd, his left arm swinging like a windmill. Enemies fell in swaths like harvested wheat. The iron warriors frantically rushed towards Ning Lu, wanting to save their king, their guide to mechanical ascension. The crowd surged, pouncing on the giant. The crowd crashed against a reef harder than steel, scattering in all directions. Ning Lu wildly swung Pukachi until, with an explosion, the steel body could no longer withstand the Gene Seed Primarch's violent power and shattered, forcing him to stop. At the same time, Ning Lu, who had acted in a barbarian manner and broken Luke Bo's rules, clearly felt that most of the potion had been digested. King Pukachi is dead. The iron warriors stared with wide eyes. They had lost their faith and knelt down dejectedly. The Crazy King is dead. A fervent cheer erupted in the Nest Tower Palace. Most of the nobles raised their arms in celebration, marking the end of the Dark Era. They looked at the retreating outsiders. Don't let the Crazy King's lackeys escape. While the nobles vented their anger, Thierry excitedly ran to Pukachi's corpse. After confirming the Crazy King's complete death, he immediately came before Ning Lu and knelt on one knee. My king, Thierry Vieira, by my family's honor and soul, I swear my eternal loyalty to you. I accept your allegiance. Ning Lu said in a deep voice, bring your subordinates and ascend the tower with me. Rolslev, you led your subordinates to capture and imprison them. Establish a defensive line, guard against attacks. As you command, my lord. Rolslev accepted the order and immediately took action. Thierry led the way, and Ning Lu arrived at the palace. As soon as he stepped into the palace, he saw the golden hall stained with blood and corpses in pools of blood. Ning Lu looked at the nobles dressed in luxurious clothes. Before he could speak, he was surprised to see all of them kneeling on one knee. We pledge our loyalty to the liberator of Luke Bo. Ning Lu was silent for a moment, then activated his psychic vision to observe everyone. He noticed that the dominant colors of their aura were yellow, happy and outgoing, and white, bright, and he suddenly understood. I accept your allegiance. My king, the entire Hive City will welcome your arrival, except for Wise 1 Kivior 15 of altar number 3. Ning Lu already had a countermeasure. He looked at the nobles of Luke Bo and asked in a deep voice. Has production significantly decreased during this period? The nobles all looked at the giant in surprise. How did this new king know? Did Thierry tell him? My king, I am Count Moravsky. As wise as you are, it is indeed so. Ning Lu nodded slightly. His judgment was correct. Pukachi, who prioritized heavy machinery, disregarded flesh and blood, and was almost insane, clearly wouldn't care about the food crisis caused by the alien pirates. Even the remote Tezvok was affected. Luke Bo, with a larger population and in the central region, would inevitably be more affected, but no one dared to report to the crazy king, and Pukachi wouldn't care about those fragile flesh and blood lives. I need a representative to tell that wise one that I will restore and further increase Luke Bo's production capacity. The nobles exchanged glances, and finally, all of them looked at Moravsky, who had just spoken. My king, I am willing to go. I believe the wise one certainly does not wish for the war in Luke Bo to continue. My king, I will go with Count Moravsky. Thierry volunteered, and Ning Lu immediately agreed. Good. You tell Kivior 15 that if he doesn't believe it, he can seek confirmation from Wise One Kaminsky. Chapter 33. Logic wins support. Altar number 3 of Luke Bo Hive City. Kivior 15 withdrew the data probe of his mechanical tentacles from the data slate Moravsky had brought. The name Kivior, derived from the Wise One who led the Mars exploration fleet that discovered Vostronia, is a historical identifier used by many local members. The appended, -15 feet was a custom addition by the Wise One to highlight this unit's unique personality, similar to another tech priest who customized, -23. Thierry was the first to speak. Wise One, as you can see, Pukachi is dead, and King Ning Lu, the new king from Tetzverk Hive, has occupied the nest tower and the upper nest. Moravsky then added, Wise One, Pukachi had been crazy for a long time. Without King Ning Lu, Luke Bo would have collapsed soon. Foolish Pukachi, fragile human. The voice from within the red robes indicated Kivior 15's assessment. Pukachi's idea of pursuing a perfect body was not wrong, but he overestimated the wisdom and endurance of fragile flesh and blood life. Moravsky and Thierry exchanged glances. They naturally understood the Wise One's attitude. Without his tacit approval, the crazy king would not have been able to rule Luke Bo for so many years. The white-haired Marquis quickly said, Wise One, King Ning Lu has noticed the recent decline in Luke Bo's production capacity. He promises to quickly restore it. Thierry then added, King Ning Lu has already done so in Tezvok, and has reached an agreement with Wise One Kaminsky. Kivior 15 remained silent, his golden mechanical eyes flickering with red and green binary code as he contacted Wise One Kaminsky through the Mechanicus's exclusive communication channel for high-ranking members. After a torrent of binary data flowed for a moment, the Wise One spoke. I need to meet this new king. Lead the way. 16 standard minutes later, Kivior 15 met the new king. More convinced of the perfection of mechanical bodies than Kaminsky and Pukachi, he engaged in a 5-minute struggle with his new king before finally speaking. Kaminsky told me that you restored Tezvok's production capacity and completed reforms in the lower nest dome. But you did not deal with the Xenos pirates as agreed, instead attacking Luke Bo and slaying Pukachi, who was blessed by the Omniscia. This is a breach of contract. Ning Lu shook his head. No, my attack on Luke Bo was precisely to fulfill the contract. What you say does not conform to logic. To deal with the pirates, we need spaceships. All 3 of Tezvok's ships have set sail under the command of Robert Bolzlov. Ning Lu's eyes sparkled. I did not attack Mazov and Szczecin first, but attacked Luke Bo, precisely for the Piontkovsky family's frigate. After occupying the nest tower, he searched Pukachi's palace and made 3 major gains. First, naturally, was the foundation of the Piontkovsky family, the STC for maglev trains and some incomplete technologies related to mechanical modification. Second, were the potion materials that only he could maximize. He found a total of 25 types, 43 pieces of potion materials. In addition to completing another set of sailor potions, his greatest gain was completing 2 sets of omniscient potions. Ning Lu found the main materials for omniscient in the study, 2 data slates from dead tech priests. He also found 7 auxiliary materials in the laboratory, unused Mars Class 1 helical gears. He currently had no suitable targets, otherwise he would have long since ordered Bukayo and Rolsliv to other hive cities to kill some tech priests and obtain data slates. The last gain was the frigate docked at the spaceport. Unlike Tezvok's warships, which were scattered among the Bolslov, Fender, and Kernikova families, Luke Bo had only one ship, the Pishek. Upon discovering this gain, Ning Lu immediately dispatched Bukayo and the 7th Company, carrying the key, to the spaceport by flying vehicle to take control of the Pishek. At the same time, based on this new gain, he reorganized his response with extraordinary eloquence. After being promoted to barbarian, the extraordinary abilities from his lawyer period had more or less improved. The improvement in extraordinary eloquence was not as significant as finding loopholes in rules, but it was greater than the improvement in his ability to extract information from data. With a frigate, I can travel to the stars and strike at Xeno's pirates. He pulled out a data slate. He had previously spent 15 minutes using his superhuman brain to process data from all factories in Luke Bo's upper nest over 6 work cycles, and used his ability to extract information to find key points, finally forming charts. The trapezoidal chart in the first table is the production statistics table every 10 minutes for the B-14 weapon foundry in Luke Bo Hive City 6 cycles ago, during the day shift. As you can see, after working hours exceeded 5 hours, output dropped sharply, by 8.52%. He lightly tapped his finger, bringing up another table. This is the production statistics table for the same factory, same shift, and same time of work 5 cycles ago. As you can see, the output of the first standard hour was only that of the third standard hour of the previous day, and at 4 standard hours, it began to drop sharply, by 10.83%. Ning Lu displayed the charts to KIVIOR 15 one by one, speaking with data. He finally brought up a comprehensive industrial production capacity statistics chart, using Mars coin as the unit of measurement to calculate the production capacity of Luke Bo's upper nest over 6 work cycles. This chart shows that the total production capacity of Luke Bo's upper nest has decreased from 2.508 billion to 1.635 billion Mars coin per work cycle. Combining the previous charts, we can draw one conclusion: Luke Bo's production capacity is rapidly declining. Data is accurate, logic is rigorous, and the conclusion is correct. KIVIOR 15 immediately made his assessment. He consulted the giant before him. King Ning Lu, how should this be resolved? Naturally, by solving the problem. There is only one reason behind this, and that is the food problem. Workers are not machines, nor servitors, much less bodies of steel. The weakness of flesh and blood. Kivier 15 looked down on mortal flesh and blood, but had to accept reality. Kaminsky, and I request that you fulfill your promise as soon as possible. Of course, I always keep my promises. I need 12 work cycles to prepare. Only after occupying Luke Bo did Ning Lu realize the severity of the food crisis. The Vostoinia 1st Regiment also sustained low losses in combat, so he decided to launch an attack on Mazov and Szczecin earlier, and then immediately set sail to deal with the Xenos pirates. Thierry and Murovsky saw Ning Lu effortlessly gain Kivier 15's approval for his status as the new king of Luke Bo, and their last worries were put to rest. The giant not only possessed godlike combat power, but he was also not as insane as Pukachi. When not in combat, he was rational and wise, grasping the key points of concern for the wise one, using logic to win support, and achieving political goals. Both thought in unison: the landscape of Vostronia will change. Ning Lu will unify all 33 scattered hive cities and become the one true king. Considering his impending departure from Luke Bo and subsequent journey to the stars, Ning Lu decided to reform Luke Bo after his return. Murovsky, you will temporarily be in charge of Luke Bo's civil affairs. As you command, my king. After Murovsky left, Ning Lu sent messages to Rolsliv and Bukayo, summoning them to the palace for a military meeting. He intended to conduct a new round of military expansion. Chznney was also specifically named by him to attend this meeting. Chapter 34, Expanding the Army. The military meeting began with Ning Lu first receiving a briefing. Bukayo yielded the opportunity to Chznney. "My king." Chznney nervously looked up, meeting Ning Lu's dark eyes, and his mind immediately went blank. He was stunned for a few seconds. Bukayo nudged him from beside, and he came back to his senses, recalling the young man's kind reminder on the way. "Look at my lord's feet." Chznney quickly lowered his head, subconsciously changing his address, following Bukayo's usage. "My lord, the 7th Company has taken control of the Pishek. Everyone on the ship has sworn allegiance to you. The ship is in good condition and ready to set sail at any time." "Well done." Hearing Ning Lu's words, Chznney breathed a sigh of relief. He still couldn't understand why he, a captain, was reporting instead of the company commander. "My king, the defensive positions of the Nest Tower have been initially established." Rolslev still addressed his master in his own way, even though in his heart, Ning Lu was a deity. "Additionally, among the living captives, 4,806 people believe that you, who killed the crazy king, are the true representative of the Omniscia, and they wish to pledge their loyalty to you." Thierry noticed that everyone's gaze was focused on him. "My king, I believe their allegiance is sincere." Pukachi's way of leading this army was to cultivate personal worship for him. He emphasized his perfect body as the omniscious representative. His private army, after years of indoctrination, had come to believe his nonsense. "Now that you have killed the crazy king before them, you have shattered their belief." Thierry still felt a deep shock recalling the scenes from not long ago. "Thus, they naturally regard you as the image Pukachi created." Ning Lu nodded. He immediately reconceptualized the army building plan in his mind. 10 seconds later, he spoke. "I accept their loyalty. Rolslev, you will immediately select soldiers to fill the 1st Regiment's roster. Thierry, you will use the Vieira family personnel as a base, select personnel from the surrendered army, and form the 2nd Regiment according to the 1st Regiment's establishment. Bukayo, you are responsible for forming the 3rd Regiment. You can select personnel from the surrendered soldiers or recruit independently to form the 3rd Regiment." Ning Lu gave Bukayo more freedom. After all, the young man's physique was still within the normal range, and the sleepless were not like the warrior in having absolute martial prowess, so forming his own regiment was more unique. "As you command, my lord." Chznney, you are responsible for forming the 4th Regiment. Your squad and the remaining captives are your foundation. For the insufficient personnel, you will recruit them yourself. Any problems? Chznney had the least military achievements among the group, so Ning Lu could only give him the people the other regimental commanders had passed over. This was also his final test. If he dared not accept the order, Ning Lu would let him continue to be a captain. Chznney was stunned. He hadn't expected to be directly promoted from captain to regimental commander. Although surprised, this time he didn't look up, nor did his mind freeze. "My lord, you trust me, and I will not disappoint you." "Chznney, don't be nervous. I will not pick people from the captives, those are all yours." Seeing that Bukayo had his own plans, Ning Lu approved their distribution scheme. After a moment of thought, he spoke. "In that case, send the remaining people back to Tezvok and order Howard to form the 5th Regiment. With 5 fully staffed regiments, a total of 12,500 warriors, plus commanders and subsequently supplemented armored vehicles, the total consumed supplies were financially manageable for Ning Lu, who occupied Tezvok and Luke Bo. Moreover, he would conquer 2 more hive cities. If it weren't for the lack of talent, he could add 5 to 10 more regiments without issue. Still lacking talent. As Ning Lu thought of this, he remembered the 2 portions of omniscient potions that could be prepared. He looked at Thierry. "Do your subordinates have any technical talents?" "My king, I have a technical team of 37 people. Among them, only Wojciech Belik can be considered a technical talent." As he spoke, he took out a data pad and showed the file to Ning Lu. "The Belik family has been mechanics for generations. Wojciech has dealt with machinery since he was a child. The technique for awakening the machine spirit of the maglev train was researched by him and then taught to others. I need his service." Ning Lu decided to keep him by his side for observation. If his ability and loyalty met the minimum standards, he would be trained as an omniscient. It is his honor to serve you. Thierry gladly offered his most capable technical talent. I will immediately send him a message, ordering him to come and report to you. Ning Lu's gaze swept over the 4 regimental commanders. All your regiments must undergo swimming training, especially the 4th Regiment. Chznney gave a wry smile, then answered the order along with the other 3. He thought with vexation, is my lord deliberately trying to discipline me? He knows I can't learn to swim. A moment later, a middle-aged man with neat brown short hair, dressed in red with white trim, walked quickly into the palace. He solemnly saluted everyone. My king, Lord Thierry, esteemed lords, Wojciech Belik greets you all. I hear you are a technical talent. Now I give you 2 tasks. One is to repair the crack in my heavy halberd, and the other is to research waterproof weapons. Ning Lu immediately gave Wojciech test tasks to examine his abilities. As you command, my lord. Chznney, stay. Everyone else, withdraw. Thierry's loyalty still needed to be tested, so Ning Lu decided to cultivate Chznney into an extraordinary being first. After everyone left, Ning Lu looked at Chznney. You seem to be under a lot of pressure. My lord, you see clearly. Everything else is fine, but I truly have no talent for swimming. Ning Lu casually picked up a book from the desk and handed it to Chznney. Go to the side hall and read, and wait for my summons. As you command, my lord. After taking it, Chznney found that it was not a book on military theory as he had expected, but a book on rhetoric. He reluctantly walked to the side hall. Although his background was better than that of the lower nest people, he had also received basic education at the Omniscia altar and could perform basic reading and writing. However, rhetoric was a field that only nobles, arbitrators, lawyers, and other upper-class talents needed to study, and he had no foundation in it. Chznney felt that today was both his luckiest work cycle and his most vexing. Even so, once he sat on the leather chair, he immediately entered a state of serious reading. Just as he was earnestly grappling with the rhetoric book, he heard Ning Lu's voice. Chznney picked up the book and quickly walked into the palace. He stopped 10 meters from Ning Lu, but the giant walked directly in front of him. Chznney saw Ning Lu's left hand extending a bottle of potion towards him. The blue gelatinous substance was like the ocean. Drink it. Chznney did not hesitate for a moment. After taking it, he directly tilted his head back and drank the potion. Half a standard hour later, Chznney mastered meditation and psychic vision under Ning Lu's guidance. Thank you, my lord, for your grace. The sailor said excitedly. He became even more convinced that Ning Lu was a deity. Are you still worried about swimming now? My lord, the sea is my home. I want to jump into the sea right now. The opportunity will come soon. Chapter 35, Assassinating the Captain of the Guard. 3 work cycles later, King Ning Lu decided to launch a new offensive. Thierry and Chznney needed time to form their regiments, and Bukayo was still in the preparation stage. King Ning Lu decided to take only the 1st Regiment to conquer Szczecin and Mazov. He set out leading the troops, holding his repaired heavy halberd, leaving Wojciech behind to continue developing waterproof weapons. Yelena rushed to join the team, surprised that King Ning Lu had conquered the powerful Luke Bo hive city in such a short time. Mazov, upper nest, ventilation shaft. Maria Kornikova, 2 meters and 1 centimeter tall, applied tubular machine oil to her scimitar. Another woman, with a shaved head, who was maintaining a laser-long gun, glanced at the time on her tactical wristband and whispered. Maria, the agreed rendezvous time has exceeded 13 standard minutes. Polankova should be dead. The 6 of them were divided into 2 teams, each carrying out assassination missions. After infiltrating the hive city, they acted independently to hunt their targets. Svetlana, she won't be coming. She assassinated Baron Bereshensky, which triggered a pursuit by the security forces. Given her abilities, it's impossible for her to escape. So it was her. I thought it was you. Svetlana exclaimed. Among the 6, the other 5 each had their own strengths, but Maria surpassed them in every aspect. My target is the captain of the guard. Polankova created an opportunity for me. Maria said, wiping the blade with a yellow silk cloth. Follow me. Svetlana hesitated for a few seconds. If anyone else attempted an assassination when the target was vigilant, she would think it was madness, but Maria had the ability to exploit any opportunity. Volukevich, the captain of the guard of Mazov, felt like he was going crazy. The communicator kept beeping, and he didn't even want to check the messages. Volukevich, 2 work cycles have passed since the heirs of our Skorupski family died. Have the culprits not been caught yet? Volukevich, I am the new head of the Drongovsky family. My father, Bereshensky, died in the last work cycle. You must hand over the killer to me. Volukevich, whose hairline had noticeably receded, wearily dealt with the urging from various families before deciding to vent his anger on his subordinates. He switched to the command channel and roared furiously at all the squad leaders. You useless good-for-nothings. You can't even pinpoint an assassin's location. Damn it, if you don't find him today, don't even think about standing down. After hanging up the communication, he gulped down a glass of water, feeling a little better. At this moment, the communicator beeped again. Volukevich's body trembled, and he answered weakly. Captain, found him. The assassin has been found. She's hiding in chemical plant B-118. Volukevich's spirits lifted, and he shouted loudly. Keep an eye on him. I'm on my way. The captain of the guard immediately stood up and gathered his men around him. Follow me. We must catch that idiot who's been causing me trouble today. He boarded an open-top command vehicle, which started and sped down the street. About 2 kilometers from the target, a blinding flash of light suddenly struck the rapidly moving wheels. The command vehicle immediately lost balance, spinning and crashing into a wall. Assassin. Volukevich drew his laser pistol. He hadn't expected the assassin to be so bold, nor had he expected to be attacked before even entering the factory area. Those useless subordinates didn't report the assassin breaking out. Could there be more than one assassin? Volukevich did not give verbal commands. He didn't want to become the assassin's target. He crouched and scurried to the wall of a roadside building, observing his surroundings. He noticed that the laser gun was silenced, it made no sound when fired. The assassin's marksmanship was precise, with each shot, a subordinate fell. After observing for more than 10 seconds, he finally determined the assassin's location was at the water tower by following the laser beam. This is an experienced assassin. That water tower supplies water to 15 nearby factories, so there are too many escape routes. The captain of the guard pulled out his communicator and contacted his squad leaders, speaking in a low voice. Idiots. As he spoke, he didn't notice a figure silently and swiftly approaching from the shadows. B-138 water tower, repeat. B. A cold glint flashed, a scimitar slid, and a head fell to the ground. Blood splattered on her face, but Maria's heart felt no ripple, not even a sense of accomplishment from completing the mission. After King Ning Lu captured Szczecin, he dispatched the 7th Company to seize the destroyer Termalika from the spaceport. Another destroyer, New Songchi Sang Chejia, was sent to participate in the war against the Xenos pirates. In the royal palace, besides finding a sequence 9 inches reader, potion material, he also obtained the main material for sequence 8 inches Midnight Poet, which corresponds to sequence 9 inches Sleepless, a millennium-old poem. The Magdans were the most ostracized anomaly among the Vostronia people, valuing a type of knowledge most despised by tech priests, culture. The Szczecin royal palace housed 2 collections of poems by ancient Terra poets, Musa Galil's, The Nightingale and the Fountain, and Herbert's, Harmony of Light. King Ning Lu left the 3rd and 9th Companies to guard and immediately led his troops to attack Mazov. As soon as he broke into the upper nest, he immediately noticed a difference. The security forces that had previously been the first to react and block in the 3 hive cities did not appear. King Ning Lu's resistance came from Mazov's regular army. After he crushed the defenders with overwhelming force, Yelena brought 2 assassins to audience. As he listened to the briefing, he recalled that Maria was the only one among the 6 who had held his gaze for a while. Her will is extraordinary. King Ning Lu evaluated her in his mind, while Maria's cool voice reached the final part of the briefing. As I expected, after the captain of the guard died, the various families immediately began to vie for the position of captain of the guard, completely forgetting to search for the assassin, and they were still bickering until you attacked the Hive City. King Ning Lu nodded, saying admiringly, "Well done, it exceeded my expectations." He then said to Yelena, "The 3 who are alive have passed my test." Besides Maria and Svetlana from Mazov, 1 assassin from Szczecin, where the battle results were smaller, also survived. Mazov and Szczecin are yours. Speed up the reconstruction according to Tezvok's methods. In Mazov's palace, King Ning Lu also found a reader, potion material, and once again, he only found 2 potion materials, still 2 collections of poems by ancient Terra poets. One was Anna Andreevna Akhmatova's, Evening, and the other was Adam Zagaevsky's, Shock. King Ning Lu dispatched the first company to raid the spaceport and seize the destroyer Vistula. Upon returning to Tezvok and meeting Kaminsky, he understood the extent of the Magdan's ostracism. The sage immediately spoke upon seeing him. "King Ning Lu, you have punished the Magdans, and the god of all machines is greatly pleased. Before I came, the omniscia bell rang 3 times. King Ning Lu did not respond, he believed art also had its value. The sage continued, "Rosicky has forged armor for you. Please fulfill the agreement as soon as possible and deal with the Xenos pirates. Sage, I will depart before the night Kyle shift and will set foot on the spaceport next work cycle. Please bring Rosicky. He will provide you with assistance." Chapter 36 Boarding the ship. After Kaminsky left, Ning Lu waited for Howard. "My lord, I have begun to fully implement the Handman Sea Dome system in the lower nest, and soon the lower nest will be completely revitalized." After listening to the briefing, Ning Lu said with appreciation, "Well done. You must also take charge of the formation of the 5th Regiment. Your future is not as an arbitrator." "Yes, my lord. You also need to pay attention to discovering talents within the regiments to prepare for the next expansion." Ning Lu made the same request to all regimental commanders. When he returned to Vostronia again, he would carry out a new round of expansion and completely conquer this world. The defense of Tezvok is also entrusted to you. Buksa will assist you in this regard. Having just subdued Mazov and Szczecin, the Magdan people were more artistic and their will to resist was not strong. Ning Lu handed these 2 hive cities over to Rolslev and his 1st regiment. "My lord, I will definitely guard Tezvok for you and await your return." After Howard left, Rosicky brought dozens of servitors and delivered the armor. The servitors, with mechanical supports on their feet, helped Ning Lu put on his black armor. "King Ning Lu, does the armor fit you?" Rosicky, who still retained most human features and had only 1 bionic eye implanted, wisely focused his scanning on Ning Lu's physical data and the armor. Ning Lu swayed, appeared at the palace gate, and then returned to where he had just stood, so fast that Rosicky's optical scanner only flickered for an instant. "Good, it fits. Sir, Wise One Kaminsky ordered me to go with you to fight the Xeno pirates. Go prepare the aircraft. I will depart in 1 standard hour." Tezvok only had aircraft for low-altitude use, no vehicles that supported high-altitude flight. 1 tera-hour later, Ning Lu, accompanied by Maria and 2 other assassins, boarded the transport ship he had transferred from the spaceport under Rosicky's guidance. Luke Bo Hive City, Upper Nest Palace. Ning Lu first summoned Chznney to listen to the briefing. "My lord, Thierry has diligently carried out your order to form the 2nd Regiment. He used his prestige and appeal, cooperating with Muravsky to stabilize order. I believe he is truly loyal to you." Ning Lu nodded slightly. If Thierry had ulterior motives, the time he was away would have been his best opportunity. "How is your 4th Regiment being formed?" "My lord, the 4th Regiment has been formed and requests to go to war with you." "In that case, immediately lead the 4th Regiment and board the Pishek." Chznney was overjoyed. After becoming a sailor, he had always wanted to serve Ning Lu and repay his trust, and now the opportunity had finally arrived. "As you wish." He spoke using the grammar he had just learned from a rhetoric book. After Chznney left, Ning Lu immediately opened his communicator and sent a message to Thierry. "Come see me at the palace." Ning Lu walked up to Thierry, holding out a red potion in his palm. Thierry hesitated for 3 seconds. "If my lord wanted to kill me, there's no need to be so troublesome." He knew he had to drink it, so he gritted his teeth, picked up the potion, and drank it down. 10 minutes later, Thierry's originally well-fitting carapace armor was almost bursting. After mastering meditation and psychic vision under Ning Lu's guidance, he carefully and slowly knelt down. "My king, thank you for your grace. I am about to go to the stars to combat Xenos. Luke Bo will be entrusted to you for defense." Ning Lu had Thierry trained as a warrior, to further enhance the strength of his top combatant. Luke Bo was different from the other 3 remote hive cities. It was surrounded by powerful factions, and it was hard to guarantee that no one would have ideas while he was on campaign. Thierry was a little disappointed that he didn't get the chance to fight with Ning Lu, but being entrusted with the important task of guarding the largest and most prosperous of the 4 hive cities, he also felt trusted. "My king, I will defend Luke Bo with my life and will never betray your trust." The third person Ning Lu summoned was Wojciech Belik. Hearing the sloshing water sound from the boxes carried by the technical artisans, he already had a guess. "It seems you have made progress. My king, I have developed a waterproof coating that, when applied to chainswords and other melee weapons and allowed to dry for 4 hours, can last for 8 work cycles without rusting." As he spoke, he opened the lid of one of the boxes and took out a chainsword. "Please allow me to demonstrate for you." "Begin." The chainsword started, water droplets splattered, and Wojciech chopped off the head of a steel dummy. After putting down the chainsword, he continued. "For ranged weapons, I have only completed the modification of laser guns. Among them, the most crucial part is the energy pack. In addition to the waterproof coating, I also used vacuum potting to prevent water from seeping in. Using this method, the maximum continuous immersion time is 1 work cycle, after which vacuum potting needs to be redone." Ning Lu watched him take a laser rifle out of the water tank, fire it without wiping it, and blow up another dummy's head. "Good, take your subordinates and materials and wait at the spaceport." The last person Ning Lu summoned was Muravsky. "My king, as you commanded, I have distributed the grain that originally belonged to the Piontkovsky family and now belongs to you. The upper nest has temporarily stabilized, but this is not a long-term solution. It is estimated to only last for 1 month. I am about to go on a campaign against the Xeno pirates, and the food problem will be resolved in a short time." Upon hearing this, Muravsky felt a great weight lifted from his shoulders. He believed that the mighty King Ning Lu would surely defeat the Xeno pirates. "May my king's journey be smooth and may he utterly defeat the Xenos." After receiving reports from Thierry and Wojciech, Ning Lu, accompanied by Maria and the 2 others, arrived at the Nest Tower's helipad and boarded the transport ship. The transport ship slowly ascended with Ning Lu, and Luke Bo rapidly shrank below. Vostronia had 3 spaceports, all controlled by the servants of the Omniscia. Ning Lu did not want to provoke the Mechanicus. When he seized the 3 ships, it was always after obtaining the keys. For him, 3 ships were enough for now. After seizing the Xeno ships, he believed that the Mechanicus would definitely be interested in advanced artillery like the suspected ether cannon and other Xeno technologies, agree to joint development, and build large warships for him. Although the Emperor signed the Treaty of Olympus with Mars in 739. M30, the fleet of the Great Crusade had not yet arrived at Vostronia, and the local Mechanicus would certainly not miss this opportunity. Since the Dark Age of technology, the Mechanicus and various warlords across the galaxy have unscrupulously utilized technology. Ning Lu also knew that the fundamental reason for the future civil war on Mars was the dissatisfaction of forces led by fabricator General Kelber Hal with the restrictions they faced. The Mechanicus allocated the ships from the 33 hive cities equally among the 3 spaceports for docking and management, based on their numbers. The 4 hive cities controlled by Ning Lu were all assigned to the Krakow spaceport. After boarding the ship, Ning Lu immediately went to the strategic room on the bridge. Chapter 37, King Ning Lu's Certain Judgment. On the Pishek, in the strategy room, amber and red console lights illuminated Ning Lu's gleaming black armor, and the wall-sized tactical video hologram emitted a bright plasma glow. He looked at the holographic projection of the Vostronia star system and asked Rosicky. I need intelligence on the Mechanicus. King Ning Lu, I have received the latest battle report. The alien fleet plundering the Vostronia star system consists of 2 battlecruiser-class warships and 12 destroyer-class raiders, 7 of which have been destroyed. As Rosicky spoke, he operated the cogitator, establishing communication with other allied ships, marking the alien warships in red on the holographic projection. Ning Lu gazed at the 2 large alien warships. Their hulls were harpoon-shaped, with pointed prows and serrated wings, perfectly matching the Flow battlecruisers he remembered. The number of warships also aligned with the Flao's tactics. They would appear singly when protecting planets from orbital bombardment but in pairs when launching attacks, which was a significant reason they were called space nomads. The enemy's large warships possess strange artillery. A hit on a ship immediately causes a shield overload. Those smaller ships are not equipped with such powerful artillery. Furthermore, the aliens have landed on numerous islands of the sea cradle, plundering extensively, completely cutting off Vostronia's food supply. Our fleet consists of 51 ships in total, 1 Mechanicus Ark, the Fire of Glory, 3 cruisers, 15 frigates, and 32 destroyers. As Rosicky spoke, he marked the Allied ships in green on the holographic projection. Although we have a numerical advantage, most of the frigates and destroyers are from various Vostronia families, making coordination difficult. Rosicky did not elaborate, but Ning Lu understood his meaning. Evidently, the Mechanicus dispatched captains were not skilled in commanding space battles, and war was not just about calculation. Coordination and communication were equally an art of command. Of course, calculation was indispensable in space combat. His eyes scanned the parameters of every ship flickering on the surrounding screens. Enemy ship AI, distance 271,503 kilometers, phase 492, inclination 6. Enemy ship A2, distance 196,024 kilometers, phase 758, inclination 3. Although Ning Lu was stepping onto a ship for the first time, he rapidly absorbed knowledge from his genetic memory, understanding everything at an astonishing speed. In astrodynamics, phase refers to the relative position of 2 spacecraft in the same orbit or orbital plane. This relative position is typically expressed as the angle formed by the lines connecting each spacecraft to the geocenter or the focus of the elliptical orbit. Ning Lu knew the Pishek could not withstand a single volley from an ether cannon. To seize the Flow battlecruisers, he could not act recklessly. He scanned the holographic projection, incorporating the speed, phase, and other parameters of both Allied and enemy warships into his calculations, discerning their tactics. The tech priest commanding the Allied fleet wanted to use the numerical advantage to encircle and annihilate the enemy ships. The Flow were performing tactical evasions to avoid being encircled and using their ether cannons to inflict casualties. Ning Lu's mind raced, performing simulations. 5 minutes later, a confident smile appeared on his face as he issued a command. Change course, proceed to 694, inclination 8. Chznney immediately relayed the order, staring intently at the holographic projection, striving to understand Ning Lu's command. Rosicky pondered as he outlined a blue course on the holographic projection. You intend to launch a surprise attack on the enemy ships in the Vistula asteroid belt. Exactly. Rosicky held a data slate, retrieving information from it. The Vistula asteroid belt is located between Vostronia and the Sea Cradle, composed of 362 asteroids. He then checked the combat plan communique sent by the Mechanicus Ark warship, finding relevant content within it. According to Tech Priest Kiwi OL9's calculations, enemy ship marked AI is expected to pass through the Vistula asteroid belt in 56 standard hours, with a probability of 65.13%. Enemy ship marked A2 is expected to enter the Vistula asteroid belt in 27 standard hours, with a probability of 79.26%. No, A2 will definitely enter the Vistula asteroid belt in 26 standard hours. Ning Lu stated with certainty. Rosicky frowned upon hearing this. Why are you so certain? Calculation and simulation. Tech Priest Kiwi OL9 is Vostronia's logician. Even when he was an info executor, he was renowned for his calculations and logic, but even he couldn't be so certain. Chznney's face showed anger upon hearing this, and Wojciech was also displeased with Rosicky's tone, though he didn't believe Ning Lu's calculations would be more accurate than a logician's. You'll know soon enough, Rosicky. Your current task is to adjust the boarding torpedoes to fit my physique. Chznney, you will lead the 4th Regiment in using assault boats to teach the cogitator. Wojciech, continue to improve the waterproof weapons. Rosicky remained silent, intending to wait for the results before offering suggestions to the assertive Ning Lu. As the 3 ships sailed towards the Vistula asteroid belt, at altar number 9 in Songasan Chega Hive, Tech Priest Zielinski, clad in red robes, emerged from the altar and arrived at Factory I-9, which he managed. After dismissing the overly eager fat foreman, Zielinski went to his laboratory. He shed his robes, revealing dense blue feathers on his upper thighs. After changing into a blue hooded robe, Zielinski approached a complex blue mechanical turntable. The mechanical turntable was divided into 9 sections, with the 8 surrounding sections arranged in bird-like structures, starting from the top: parrot, osprey. In the center of the disc was a lifelike sea eagle crafted from silver, its head held high, its 2 diamond eyes glittering brilliantly under the lumen lamps. This mechanical turntable was not built by technicians or servitors, but by him personally. A mechanical tentacle extended from Zielinski's right shoulder, inserting into the center of the turntable, into the raven's beak. The mechanical turntable began to rotate, and the 9 birds seemed to come alive, rising and falling chaotically amidst mechanical sounds. After 9 rotations, the turntable stopped, and with the sound of grinding gears, the door before him opened. Zielinski walked through the door, then raised his mechanical tentacle and inserted it into the mouth of the silver sea eagle on the wall, and the door closed behind him. Zielinski stepped downwards. His unaugmented eyes, his irises gradually turning yellow, like the eyes of a sea eagle. After descending 9,099 steps, a circular, irregular platform appeared in his sight. It changed shape every 9 seconds: circle, ellipse, rectangle. Like him, 7 others emerged from different passages. All were clad in blue robes, walking towards the center of the platform, where a gaunt old man held a crystal staff in his clawed hand. The old man was less human-like than the mutants in the shantytown. His body was hunched, making him resemble an ostrich. His hooked beak and neck were covered in colorful feathers, and his feet were bare. His foot claws, like his hand claws, resembled those of a sea eagle. Chapter 38, Boarding a Flow Battlecruiser. The withered, bird-like old man, holding a staff, waited for the 8 individuals to approach him. The fated time has arrived. It is time to enlighten the Vostronia people, to let them know that the God of all machines is a false God, and only the God of wisdom is the true God. The old man's voice was sharp, like a bird's cry. Zielinski asked in confusion, "High Priest, we still have 11 stellar years until the planned time of enlightenment. Why are you initiating it early?" Zielinski, "My lord has sent down a revelation, the fated time has come." Upon hearing this, the 8 priests bowed in unison. "We obey the High Priest's command. Praise the God of wisdom." The High Priest extended his left claw, pointing at Zielinski. "Zielinski, you are the first link in the plan. How is your execution of the Igniting the Light of Enlightenment plan progressing?" "High Priest, the foolish Pietek Swiderski is already my puppet. He will execute any of my commands." "Very good, Zielinski, you gained true wisdom before undertaking foolish mechanical modifications. As long as you make good use of the wisdom and enlightenment I have bestowed upon you, those foolish humans, the servants of the false god, will all be your playthings." The High Priest nodded in satisfaction, then questioned the other 7 individuals one by one. "Execute the enlightenment plan after 9 work cycles." "As you command, High Priest." After the 8 priests left, a hint of cunning appeared in the High Priest's blue eyes, and he began to descend the stairs. Reaching the end of the passage, he mounted a single-person speeder and let out a cackle. The Enlightenment plan is no longer important. My lord has given me a new mission, a plan that only I can complete. On the Pishek, Rosicky was astonished to discover that Ning Lu's judgment was correct. Enemy ship A2 entered the Vistula asteroid belt exactly at the time he had stated. He nervously stared at the holographic projection. Ning Lu was confident in his judgment, not even sending 2 destroyers to draw enemy fire. He performed a tactical maneuver in advance, allowing the Pishek to appear behind the enemy ship precisely as it rounded an asteroid. This gamble succeeded. The Pishek avoided the coverage of AII's powerful broadside cannons. Rosicky couldn't help but feel respect for Ning Lu. He had previously thought this giant was only formidable in combat, but he never expected him to possess such terrifying computational ability. A flesh and blood body actually possesses computational abilities exceeding those of a mechanical body. The tech priest also gained more confidence in Ning Lu's subsequent plan. He picked up the communicator and asked the boarding torpedo operator. Operator C-53, is the launch sequence ready? Ready. Execute launch sequence immediately. Boarding torpedoes have less maneuverability and armor than assault craft, but are usually smaller and harder to intercept. To accommodate Ning Lu, a giant, Rosicky specifically modified the boarding torpedo, raising the height of the crew compartment to allow him to barely stand inside. The boarding torpedo, capable of carrying an assault team, could only fit Ning Lu and 3 assassins, including Maria. A mechanical electronic voice echoed in the crew compartment, releasing torpedo from mounting frame. Promethium fuel ignited. Launch countdown. Ning Lu stood steadily within the crew compartment, listening to the broadcast. 3, 2, 1. Thrusters ignited. Propelled by burning promethium, the boarding torpedo shot out from the Pishek like an arrow from a bowstring. Maria and the other 3 immediately felt their bodies lose balance. Even the restraints pressing on their shoulders couldn't stabilize them during the rocket-like acceleration. Their bodies lurched forward, crashing into the black armor of the giant in front of them. Maria's eyes widened as she saw Ning Lu in front of her, firmly gripping the restraint bar, his body not even swaying. She stubbornly gripped the handles in front of her shoulders, desperately resisting the impact, finally stopping 5 centimeters from Ning Lu's back. The 2 assassins on her left and right only stopped just as they were about to hit Ning Lu's arms. The mechanical broadcast sounded again. Contact initiated. Impact expected to last 17 seconds. Detonation preparation. Countdown 3 seconds. Bite down on your mouthguards. Ning Lu's reminder brought the 3 back to their senses, and they immediately complied. 1. The boarding torpedo's thermite explosive module then detonated, a loud bang reverberating through the crew compartment. Maria and the other 2 immediately felt a tremendous force surging from the front, pushing them backward. Even with helmets on, the deafening roar left them dizzy and disoriented. The violent shaking and jolting made the 3 of them somewhat pale, until a majestic command rang out. Action. Only then did the 3 realize that the crew compartment hatch had opened, resting on the fiercely burning enemy deck. Ning Lu had already leapt out first, and as he heavily slammed onto the deck, several Xenos were trampled into a bloody pulp. Maria drew her twin blades from the unlocked weapon rack. Let's go. Then, she leapt out first, taking a step on the hatch before using the momentum to spring up and pounce on a tall Xeno wearing a purple tight-fitting protective suit. The Xeno turned to flee while drawing a serrated dagger from his body. Suddenly, he turned around like a fish, and the dagger stabbed towards Maria. The Xeno's prepared strike was as swift as lightning, but Maria, who had grown up immersed in chemical agents, reacted even faster. She raised her left scimitar, parrying the dagger, while at the same time, her right scimitar swung down, striking the Xeno's neck. Maria immediately felt significant resistance. The stacked folds on the Xeno's neck were tougher than she expected, like layers of leather armor. She didn't panic, drawing her blade while flipping over and jumping behind the Xeno. As she landed, she crossed her twin blades, striking both sides of the Xeno's neck. The shark-like flat, broad head fell to the ground. Maria raised her left arm, surprised to find that the finely forged scimitar in her left hand had a large chip from the previous parry. Curiously, she picked up the dagger and found it looked like it was made from a single piece of smoking crystal, with small fragments constantly breaking off its blade edge and falling to the ground. Maria decided to test the weapon's power. She lunged forward, charging toward another Xeno. With a swing of her scimitar, she chopped off the Xeno's arm, then raised her left arm and thrust it at the Xeno's neck. As the dagger touched the Xeno's wrinkled neck, Maria immediately felt significant resistance. She stared intently at the blade, suddenly seeing a large number of tiny fragments breaking off its edge, and these fragments drilled into the wound. With a faint sizzle, the Xeno showed a pained expression, then collapsed. Maria picked up the dead Xeno's dagger and looked up ahead. She saw a Xeno with eyes on the sides of its cheeks rushing towards Ning Lu. She opened her mouth to warn, his dagger. Mid-sentence, however, she saw Ning Lu thrust his halberd, avoiding the two daggers, the tip piercing through the Xeno's head. Ning Lu knew Flow glass blades were renowned for their immense power and sharpness, capable of piercing ceramite. Not wanting to damage his weapon, he easily dodged the Flao's high-speed pounce and killed him. Chapter 39, Crushing the Flow Psyker's Head. Ning Lu looked up, locking onto the highest point at the stern of the battlecruiser, which was also the Flao's strategic room. From this deck upwards, he only needed to climb 3 more decks. "Follow me." As Ning Lu spoke, he swung his heavy halberd, cutting down 6 Flow in one strike, as if harvesting wheat. Their upper bodies slowly slid down, deep purple blood splattered, and yellow fibers stretched like threads between the two parts, while secreted white fluid attempted to re-adhere the body. The death struggle lasted only a moment. The Flao's evolved healing ability was useless against the destructive power of a gene seed Primarch. Ning Lu then ascended the spiral staircase paved with purple metal, moving upwards. Countless Flow rushed from all directions, agile in their movements, attacking the 4 individuals. Maria witnessed Ning Lu's terrifying combat prowess and understood that no matter how many Flow came, they would only be mercilessly slaughtered by the giant. Her only task was to guard his rear, ensuring he wasn't bogged down. "Svetlana, Dementiva, we'll hold the rear." Dementiva, with her robust, masculine physique, pulled out a syringe and injected it into her left wrist. Her body immediately swelled by a full circle, and she roared. Dementiva, holding a shield in her left hand, charged downwards fiercely. A dozen Flow surging towards the staircase were sent flying by her impact. Her chain axe roared, cleaving open the head of an alien rushing from the right side. At this moment, a Flow holding 2 daggers rushed out from the side, his 2 eyes fixed on the prey in the middle. The next moment, a scorching beam shot through the alien's right eye and exited from his left eye. The 3 assassins cooperated seamlessly, repelling the Flow. Ning Lu, furthermore, was like a reaper. Every casual swing of his heavy halberd resulted in the death of a dozen aliens. The Flow watched the giant in horror. They had plundered dozens of star systems but had never encountered such a terrifying war machine. For a moment, they dared not step forward to block him, retreating in panic. Ning Lu easily cut through the spiraling staircase and was about to continue ascending when a gate rumbled open, and a Flow general in deep purple armor, accompanied by his subordinates, rushed out onto the deck. He saw his withered kinsmen and angrily rebuked them. The defeated troops regrouped their morale and were about to turn back to kill the giant when they suddenly felt a massive mountain pressing down from behind them. The Flow general was greatly astonished that dozens of his kinsmen had been slaughtered by a single enemy charge. They were not elite, but every Flow was a qualified void warrior, and there were no useless individuals on the capital ship, yet they were butchered like livestock. He widened his eyes, almost unable to believe what he was seeing, and it took him a second to regain his composure. The Flow general gripped his twin blades tightly, rolling continuously, searching for the giant's weakness. At the same time, he opened his throat communicator and urgently reported to the bridge in the alien language. As Ning Lu advanced, fighting, he grasped some of the language from the aliens, shouts and actions, discerning words like terror and support from the enemy general's shouts. He shook the heavy halberd in his hand, and its tip shot out like a sharp arrow, instantly piercing the throats of 27 of the general's personal guards. Maria plunged her serrated dagger into the top of Afleo's head, then kicked him with her right leg, sending him flying into 2 rushing aliens. She happened to see Ning Lu use the continuous thrusts of the Osber via Article 16. Having trained under a swordmaster since childhood, she was naturally skilled in this Vostronia people's sword art. Article 16 was also one of her specialties, but even with a scimitar and combat stimulants, she couldn't deliver 20+ strikes in an instant. Her limit was 13 strikes, yet Ning Lu completed over 20 with a heavy halberd in an instant, and each strike pierced the enemy's throat. This is a perfect combination of strength, speed, and swordsmanship. His attacks are truly unparalleled. Maria's eyes sparkled with an unusual brilliance, her mind filled with Ning Lu's recent movements. As inspiration struck, she pushed off with her legs, leaping up and charging towards the alien, wielding her scimitar with Article 16, each strike a throat cut. 1, 2, 3. Maria aligned her scimitar with the heavy halberd for thrusts, completing 5 thrusts in an instant, surpassing her single-handed, non-stimulant limit. Dodging an attack, she cut off the alien's arm, seizing its dagger, while silently thinking to herself. The gap is enormous. As Maria landed, she looked at Ning Lu and saw him facing the alien's swift twin dagger thrusts, swinging his heavy halberd, and delivering a simple, direct chop to the alien's chest. Article 23. He found the only opening in the alien's swift thrusts and delivered a precise weak-point strike. Maria asked herself if she could perform such a precise strike in the blink of an eye. Possibly, but without absolute certainty, and certainly not as effortlessly as him. What word would the Magdan people use to describe it? Effortless mastery. The general's death caused the Fleo's morale to collapse again. This time, it included not only ordinary crewmen but also warriors. Ning Lu was unstoppable, advancing another deck. The gate opened, and a squad of Flow in purple gold robes flew out in single file. Each of them held a staff, and warp energy swirled around them. At the same time, 1,000 Flow warriors surged from the deck below, attacking upwards from the rear. Ning Lu knew that the Flow possessed a series of terrifying psychic mysteries. He recalled that during the Great Crusade era, they had caused significant casualties to Astartes from various legions. When the Fire Lizard and Word-Bearers engaged the Flow during the Serapis Compliance, the Word-Bearer warrior Edikar was gravely wounded and interred in a Contemptor dreadnought. The notorious Alpha Legion destroyer, Terra veteran Nihilin, was also interred in a Contemptor dreadnought after battling the Flow. Ning Lu took a deep breath, air rushing into his lungs. After swirling several times, he suddenly opened his mouth and let out a furious howl. A dozen Flow clutched their heads in pain, the howl drilling into their brains, ultrasonic vibrations echoing. They all vomited blood simultaneously, were stunned, and fell downwards. Ning Lu swung his heavy halberd, striking down the unconscious alien psychers, and then looked into the air. Several powerful psychers among the Flow had shielded themselves with psychic energy just before the howl sounded. The Flow are most skilled at precognition. Howl is ultimately only an extraordinary ability at sequence 8. Although I am a gene seed Primarch, my body far surpasses an extraordinary at sequence 8. I haven't specifically reinforced my lungs, so howl hasn't undergone a qualitative change. They clearly also possess telekinetic spells, able to defend against sound waves. As Ning Lu's thoughts flashed, he bent his legs, gathering momentum to leap. He instantly appeared before a Flow, swung his right arm with the heavy halberd, killing 2 other psychers. At the same time, he extended his left arm, reaching for the Fleo's head. The telekinetic shield was like paper, unable to withstand the gene seed Primarch for even a second. Ning Lu's large hand gripped the Fleo's head, and with a slight squeeze, the shark-shaped head exploded, a deep purple blood mist scattering. Chapter 40. Digestion of the Barbarian Potion. While Ning Lu was leaping through the stairwell, chasing down the Flow, Maria and her 2 companions, relying on their strong will cultivated through training, did not faint but instead fell into a bitter struggle. Howls echoed, stunning dozens of nearby and more distant Flow warriors with weaker wills. But the remaining Flow warriors did not stop. They coldly stepped over the corpses of their comrades, charging upwards. In the nomadic culture of the Flow, the weak had no right to survive. Killing frail tribesmen saved resources. Maria knew that now was the time to fight with all her might. She did not ask Ning Lu for help. She had once assassinated a wizard and knew how terrifying they were. It was wise for Ning Lu to prioritize killing them. They could only rely on themselves for now. Maria pulled out a syringe from her black bodysuit and resolutely injected it into her body. She immediately felt a surge of power within her. Her usually calm, emerald eyes now flickered with a bloodthirsty killing intent. Maria leapt up, her curved blade cutting through the air, launching an attack according to the 16th stipulation of Osber Via. She broke through her limits, completing 10 stabs in an instant. Maria grabbed a dagger that fell before her and charged into the aliens. Her figure flickered, her hands waving, and she actually carved a bloody path through the aliens. Dementiva, exhausted, also gritted her teeth and injected another dose of medicine. Together with Tessiwei Sina, she launched a frenzied attack on the aliens. The beams of the laser rifles flickered frequently, and energy magazines continuously dropped to the ground. It wasn't until Tessiwei Sina pulled out her last magazine that she realized the aliens were far more ferocious than she had previously imagined. They had been mercilessly slaughtered by Ning Lu before, simply because the giant was too powerful. Tessiwei Sina even discovered that Maria's speed had also slowed, and she was surrounded by the aliens. Just as she despaired, she suddenly heard a roar. Her body swayed, and the vibrating ultrasonic waves resonated in her mind. She shed tears of blood, and though temporarily blind, she let out a sigh of relief. Ning Lu, just moments before the three fell into a life-or-death crisis, killed the Flow psionics team and leapt down. His howl resonated in the minds of the Flow, instantly causing dozens of Flow to fall into a coma. What frightened them even more was that the appearance of the giant meant a terrible truth: the elite 100 Ether Masters were all annihilated. The will of the Flow warriors was completely shattered. They scattered in terror, fleeing in all directions. They now had only one thought: to escape this hell as quickly as possible. Even boarding a raiding vessel and wandering was better than staying here. As the deserters fled, they wielded Flow glass blades at their tribesmen, just to run faster, scattering the surging warriors. The first wave of Flow-routed soldiers had just rushed to the deck, preparing to board the streamlined raiding vessels, when suddenly dense laser beams shot towards them. The Flow warriors, riddled with holes, fell into pools of blood. Chznney, leading the Vostronia 4th Regiment, landed on the Flayo's battlecruiser via assault craft. Despite prior training, the 4th Regiment encountered trouble during their first space battle. In one assault craft, a steel warrior did not follow standard operating procedures and detached from his restraints. His body, out of control, slammed into the cockpit's safety door. Unfortunately, he was no ordinary person, but a steel warrior who had undergone extensive body enhancement. He smashed through the safety door, crashed into the pilot, and ultimately caused the assault craft to lose control and collide with an asteroid. After Chznney boarded the enemy ship, he discovered he had lost a platoon. It also took him longer than expected to reform the 4th Regiment's ranks. Chznney, filled with anger, burst from the deck and crashed head-on into a squad of Flow warriors retreating down the stairwell. He swung his chainsword, which was more conducive to a sailor's combat effectiveness, striking an alien's head. At the same time, he extended his left arm and caught a dagger thrust by another alien. The Flow warrior felt his wrist clamped as if by an iron vice. The strength of the human opposite him far exceeded that of ordinary people. The sailor twisted forcefully. The exceptional strength gained after physical enhancement allowed him to break the Flayo's arm. Chznney then delivered a chop, severing the alien's head. Chznney led his subordinates, defeated the alien rout, and came before Ning Lu, saying with some shame, "My lord, I am late." Shame breeds courage. You lead your team to clear the aliens deck by deck. Ning Lu did not scold him. After excusing him from the salute, he gave his order. "As you command, my lord." Chznney immediately led his subordinates, charging onto the deck. Ning Lu strode upwards, and as he passed by the exhausted Maria and her 2 companions, he spoke. "You performed well. The mission is complete. Rest and await orders." "As you command, my king." The 3 stood straight and respectfully said, witnessing Ning Lu's superhuman combat power, they couldn't help but feel awe. A moment later, Ning Lu reached the end of the stairwell, and with a swing of his heavy halberd, he shattered the purple metal gate blocking his path. He rushed into the bridge, and then saw a flow holding a purple crystal staff, floating in midair. He spoke in halting Vostronia Low Gothic. "I am this ship's governor. Human. State your demands. I am willing to leave this star system, and am willing to give." A mocking smile hung on Ning Lu's lips. "Give. I want it all." He took a deep breath and let out a roar. The bridge swayed in response, stunning several flow. The flow governor's body also swayed. He then steadied himself, raising his amethyst staff. Die. Where Ning Lu stood, along with the surrounding 10 meters, was covered in purple psychic flames. Several high-ranking flow officers wailed in pain in the flames, but the governor paid no mind. As long as he could kill the powerful enemy, it was worth it. The flow governor was about to control his body to descend when he suddenly felt a pang in his heart. He thought, "This is bad," but it was too late. The charred black armor had already appeared before him. The flow governor quickly condensed his psychic energy, and his telekinetic power burst forth with a bang. With a loud explosion, the flow governor was blown away. He spat out a mouthful of blood but felt a little relieved. The telekinetic shield had blocked the blow. However, the next moment, his expression changed drastically. "No." The flow governor let out a desperate cry. His right leg was caught by Ning Lu's left hand. Ning Lu swung the flow governor, smashing him heavily to the ground. With the loud crash, he once again felt something dissolving within his body, merging with his own spirit. "The potion has been fully digested. I am a true barbarian." After landing, Ning Lu slaughtered all the flow on the bridge, then pulled out a long-range communicator from his armor. "Rosicky, I've captured the alien warship. You and Wojciech come over immediately." Ning Lu did not wait in place. He flew forward, killing every flow he saw. Only after receiving Rosicky's communication did he return to the bridge again. Upon arriving before the tech priest, he spoke. "I want to cooperate with the Mechanicus to develop this alien warship." Chapter 41, Night Shard. On the Mechanicus Arc Fire of Glory, Sage Kiwi OL9 examined the holographic projection. A torrent of data from the surrounding video screen surged across his faceplate, and his logic processor operated at high speed. "Enemy vessel is rapidly withdrawing. Our side has not yet gained an advantage. Enemy vessel's behavior is illogical, unreasonable. This behavior should be classified as a feint." Just as Kiwi OL9 was about to issue an order, the voice of the tech priest in charge of the audio array system suddenly came through the communicator. "Esteemed Sage, I have received a communication from Tech Priest Rosicky Czech, attached to Altar 25 of Vostronia. According to Article 9 of the Information Rating System, Chapter 5, Data Management Regulations of the Open Double Angle Bracket Omniscia Guide Close Double Angle Bracket, this information should be reported to you. Requesting data transmission. Allow data transmission. Executing data reception protocol." 3 minutes of ship time later, Sage Kiwi OL9's faceplate flickered rapidly. Updating fallacy. Enemy vessel retreating. Capital ship captured. Immediately initiate pursuit. He immediately issued an order to the tech priest awaiting his response. Order all warships to pursue the Xenos vessel. On Kiwi OL9's faceplate, a logic processor message continuously flickered. Xenos vessel, advanced artillery, extremely high research value rating. His faceplate glowed. On the Flow battlecruiser, Ning Lu began to sort his gains. While he was clearing out the Flow, he also simultaneously collected the potion materials he encountered. In addition to the Night Shard, he also found 52 types of potion materials, totaling 301 pieces. Ning Lu couldn't help but sigh. The Flow truly lived up to their name as space nomads. 51 of these potion materials were for sequence 9, with only one, a finger-long colorful worm called a prism worm on the blasphemous tablet, being the main potion material for the magistrate, corresponding to the arbitrator, sequence 8. The prism worm was also the only magistrate potion material that could not be found in Vostronia, and there were 247 of them. Ning Lu discovered this material in the interrogation room. The prism worm's eyes could emit dazzling light, and the Flow used one or two to make special blindfolds, which they wore on their tribesmen's heads. When he walked in, the Flow chained to the chair let out a miserable scream, and blood flowed down the edges of the blindfolds. Ning Lu didn't know the origin of these prism worms. These prism worms would be the upper limit of magistrate he could cultivate before encountering them again. The more important gain was the night shard. He playfully handled one night shard with his hand, with more fragments spread out before him. The night shard's appearance resembled fragments of the farthest stars in the night sky, condensing endless darkness and eerie light, forming a delicate balance. Each fragment varied in size, some as small as a fingertip, others as large as an open book, with a deep, ethereal glow flowing across their surfaces. When Ning Lu's hand touched the night shard, he could feel a cold yet subtle energy flowing, neither pure chill nor warm comfort, but a strange sensation transcending the material world. Indeed, it's a psychic material. Ning Lu keenly noticed faint, ethereal threads entwined around the fragment in his hand. Indeed, it can be used as a divination focus. Compared to other psychic schools, the school of divination appeared even more peculiar and profound. Even the most powerful psychics could not ignore the risks brought by distorted and blurred divination results. To counter this and attempt to gain clear visions, diviners would use special foci to give form and consistency to their divinations. In the future Imperium, the most common divination focus used was the Emperor's Tarot, which could also reveal the thoughts of the God Emperor himself to those chosen by it. The Night Shard was a psychic item that could serve as a divination focus, but for Ning Lu, its greatest use was as a potion material. Before his next encounter with the Flow, the quantity of Night Shards would be the upper limit of bribers he could cultivate. 198 pieces. Ning Lu began to travel back and forth to the disordered country, bringing all the Night Shards with him. On the first layer of space, he found a Gothic-style spurred palace, its spires shrouded in a black sky, and the palace's exterior walls built from stark black stone. All the Night Shards were spread out on the ground by him, not touching each other. Subsequently, Ning Lu attempted to enter the second layer of space. With a thought, he instantly crossed an invisible barrier and arrived in the second layer of space. As soon as he reached the second layer of space, Ning Lu immediately perceived the difference in this layer. This layer of space was between the first layer and another illusory space, seemingly real yet illusory. What is the purpose of this space? The illusory side represents the shadow of order, and I cannot change the first layer of space, which represents the utilization of rules. Ning Lu looked around, and related concepts emerged in his mind. Disordered country, Black Emperor. Order, shadow, rules. Utilize, break. Ning Lu's black eyes lit up. With a thought, an illusory palace instantly transformed into a spring. He immediately felt his spirituality rapidly decline, almost dry. His face paled slightly, and his figure flickered, arriving before the spring. Compared to the previous semi-real, semi-illusory state, the spring he shaped according to his will was much more real. The spring water was crystal clear, flowing over rocks with a pleasant tinkling sound, refreshing and invigorating. Indeed, break the rules and reshape them according to my beneficial will. He pondered how to utilize the second layer of space. He could conquer worlds in the outside world and build factories and other structures according to his will, but doing the same here would be a waste. Ning Lu's eyes suddenly lit up as he thought of the best way to utilize this place, cultivating potion materials. Hive giant rat and similar creatures were too common and had no cultivation value. But creatures like chemical dogs and centipede snakes were worth cultivating, and prism worms even more so. If he could cultivate those biological potion materials here, even if they couldn't reproduce, it would at least further reduce the risk of potion formulas being discovered by others, and even if the Chaos Gods idly spied on him, they wouldn't know. Furthermore, cultivating Beyonders would also be more convenient. For example, I've already decided to cultivate Maria Kurnikova into an assassin, but because I hadn't decided before, I didn't bring any centipede snakes, so I'll have to wait until I return to Vostronia. He then thought of the consumed spirituality, and a wry smile appeared on his face. This is destined to be a long process, but having the ability is always better than having no opportunity. Ning Lu then returned to the real world. After a moment of thought, he decided to bring all the Flow data crystals and other materials back to the disordered country for slow research. If he were an ordinary Beyander, exhausting his spirituality would make even movement feel strenuous, but as a Gene Seed Primarch, he only felt a slight discomfort. The Flow had a profound understanding of the many star systems in the Misty Star region, and this knowledge would play a huge role in his subsequent expansion. Although he only mastered a small portion of the Flow language, as a Gene Seed Primarch, it was not difficult for him to decipher texts. Moreover, he could also cultivate readers. Thinking of it, Ning Lu immediately took action, bringing all the collectible materials back to the disordered country, filling a palace. Subsequently, he received a message and went to the bridge to listen to the briefing. Thanks to Eggplant is a Pigeon for the reward. Chapter 42, Manipulating Sage Kiwi OL9. At his signal, Chznney took the lead in the briefing. My lord, I have conducted a thorough sweep of all decks, and the warriors of the 4th Regiment are clearing remote areas in small teams. In this battle, the 4th Regiment suffered a total of 184 casualties, including 50 accidental deaths during boarding and 134 combat deaths. Ning Lu was not surprised, the Flow possessed considerable combat power. Had they not scattered and fled, the casualties would have been even greater. A trapped beast fights desperately, but without a commander, it loses coordination and organization. King Ning Lu, Sage Kiwi OL9 replied that the alien artillery has extremely high research value and he will arrive after the battle. Wojciech and I inspected the alien warship. Although we couldn't figure out all the controls, we can confirm that the ship's current condition is still maintainable. After listening to the briefing, Ning Lu issued orders. Send messages to the Fen family and the Kurnikova family's ships, with encrypted identification runes attached, ordering them to find a way to control Bolslov and capture Robert. If they need assistance, you are responsible for leading a team to resolve it. Before the fleet set sail, he obtained encrypted runes from Howard and Yelena. Once members of the two families received them, they would act according to his orders. After everyone withdrew, Ning Lu went to the Flow governor's quarters. He had noticed before that the governor's large bed was 3.5 meters long, made of purple alloy, barely allowing him to curl up and sleep. Ning Lu slept for a while, and after recovering his spiritual energy, the communicator happened to ring. King Ning Lu, Sage Kiwi OL9 has arrived. Please proceed to the bridge to discuss the details of the transaction. All right. Ning Lu strode back to the bridge and saw Kiwi OL9, clad in a red robe. Like other Mechanicus members, the sage couldn't suppress his curiosity about Ning Lu's body, but through logical calculation, he quickly realized he lacked the ability to decipher the mysteries of the giant's physique. The alien artillery has developmental value. On behalf of the Mars Mechanicus, I wish to discuss cooperative development with you. Speak, what do you want? Besides cooperative development and sharing research results, I also want the star map data of all altars in the Vostronia star system. To navigate the vast universe without being like a blind person swimming naked, a star map is an important reference. Although various factors like the warp interfere, a star map cannot be relied upon 100%, but having a reference is almost always better than having none. Your request is denied. The Vostronia star map is the crystallization of wisdom from thousands of years of exploration by countless omniscient servants. Based on the principle of equal exchange, you can only obtain star maps of the two adjacent star systems. No, Ning Lu flatly denied, stating with confidence, "Such a transaction is not equal, the alien artillery is more valuable. It can fire a pulse energy beam, and the etheric field in the beam can bypass a ship's void shield, directly eroding its hull. Its side effect can also overload the ship's shields. The entire Mechanicus lacks such advanced artillery technology. By studying it, the omniscious servants will achieve theoretical breakthroughs through new understanding." Ning Lu stated with certainty. He recalled that in the future, tech priest Hieronymus Tesla boldly analyzed a Flow spacecraft that crashed in the Tamar sector, subsequently proposing his ether plasma theory, which earned him immense prestige. That was merely a crashed spacecraft, while the battlecruiser he captured had a hull integrity exceeding 95%, especially with the ether cannon completely undamaged. Kiwi OL-9 remained silent for 9 seconds before speaking. This unit requests to inspect the artillery first to determine its specific transactional value. Please, Ning Lu said indifferently. Compared to other races, the Flayo's greatest advantage was their etheric technology. Not only could human void shields not resist it, but even Eldar holofields couldn't defend against it. Naval combat with the Flow was unwise. He remembered that in the upcoming Great Crusade era, Crone often of the Midnight Lord's Legion bravely commanded his ship to engage the Flow while his fleet was retreating. Ultimately, his ship, the Whispering Death, was destroyed, and his company commander forged fragments of the hull into a combat shield named Blood Shield, covered with malevolent ceramite barbs. The Blood Shield was both a mark of Offin's brave, mocking shame and a cruel jest. The more Kiwi OL-9 researched, the more he would recognize its value. Wojciech, immediately draft the transaction document as I just instructed. 4 documents, 2 for each party, written in Vostronia Low Gothic and Technolingua respectively. As you command, my king. Wojciech immediately moved, but Rosicky frowned. As far as he knew, Ning Lu hadn't even inspected the flanks, yet he was so certain that the sage would accept the deal. This was even more incredible than his previous judgment before the space battle, at least then he had data as a reference. An hour of ship time later, Ning Lu received the contract from Wojciech. Using his lawyer's ability to meticulously analyze, he found 3 loopholes and, for further negotiation, pointed out one key modification. The subject of the transaction is only the ether cannon, not including this ship. Rosicky and Wojciech were stunned, then quickly reacted. My king, the sage won't be fooled by this. What do you think? No matter, just do as I say. Wojciech was a technical talent, not skilled in negotiation. If he presented all conditions at the outset, the negotiation might collapse immediately. However, once the opposing party recognized the value of the transaction subject and was determined to obtain it, they would be willing to pay a higher price. The agreement was revised 10 minutes later. Just as it was ready, Kiwi OL-9 returned with his subordinates. I agree to your terms. Now, let's discuss the details. I have prepared the agreement. You may review it. If there are no issues, we will sign immediately. At Ning Lu's signal, Wojciech handed the data slate to the sage. Kiwi OL-9 took it with a mechanical tendril and quickly flipped through it. This clause needs modification. The subject of the transaction is the entire alien warship. No artillery exists in isolation, especially the ether cannon, which involves a complex system. Furthermore, other modules of the alien warship also have some research value. After Kiwi OL-9 and the Mechanicus recognized its value, they were determined to acquire the entire warship. Rosicky and Wojciech showed expressions of, just as expected, a logician would not overlook such an obvious logical flaw. You can have the whole ship, if you meet my demands. What do you want? I'm giving up a battlecruiser for one in return. That's fair, isn't it? Rosicky and Wojciech both thought to themselves, 1 for 1 is certainly fair, and the Mechanicus even profits, but Ning Lu also demanded the star map. Seeing Kiwi OL-9 hesitate, Ning Lu smiled and said, the star map can be copied. The omniscious servants lose nothing. Exchanging a repeatable ship for an alien warship, and gaining new technology, is worth it. Ning Lu's extraordinary eloquence led the sage into another logical chain. He was silent for 3 seconds before speaking. I agree to your terms, but I also have a condition. You must eliminate those abandoned alien rogue in the Sea of Melody within 10 standard days. I accept that condition. Chapter 43, Bukayo's Assessment. Ning Lu knew that Vostronia wouldn't last much longer, and he had already decided to conquer Sea of Melody as soon as possible. After finalizing the transaction framework, Ning Lu further confirmed the details of his battlecruiser with Kiwi OL-9. He didn't want to receive a ship that was merely for show, so he asked Rosicky to confirm the most advanced technologies currently mastered by the Mechanicus, from minor details like hull plate materials to major modules like engines, lance weapons, and void shields. Among them, in addition to the cannons on both sides, there were also elevated ether cannons on the 2 wings. Of course, facilities like his privately designed dormitory and armory were also indispensable, and Ning Lu put forward his own requirements for all of them. After all, this warship would be his flagship before returning to the Imperium. Throughout the entire process, he kept his psychic vision active, observing the auras of the 2. After finalizing all details, Ning Lu and Kiwi OL-9 signed the King Ning Lu and Mars Technology Agreement on Technology Development and Trade. He did not use the name of a Hive City ruler, king, but replaced it with a new Low Gothic word. The political implication contained within was that he would become the king who unified Vostronia. The sage discussed the term king with Ning Lu and, after learning that it was merely a special title he bestowed upon himself because he occupied 4 hive cities, did not continue to inquire. Rosicky was thoughtful. During his time with Ning Lu, he had come to understand this giant, knowing that he would not act without meaning. When signing, Ning Lu pondered briefly and decided to use the symbolic emblem of the Black Emperor path as his personal seal. He quickly sketched an image on the data slate, disordered black arcs, followed by surrounding wings, spikes, and an abstract crown above. Wojciech quickly completed the electronic seal production according to the image. After signing the agreement, Ning Lu ordered the 4th Regiment to retreat, taking all found spoils of war, including the Flow glass blade and the psychic staff. He was on the bridge, listening to Chznney's briefing. My lord, after contacting Fender and the Kernikova family, I devised a plan to lure Robert with the spoils. I then led the assault team to seize the ship, and he has been captured alive by me. Well done, Ning Lu nodded in satisfaction. Chznney's growth proved his judgment was correct. Imprison him and hand him over to Bukayo upon returning to Vostronia. As Ning Lu's fleet sailed towards Sea of Melody, in Luke Bo Hive city of Vostronia, within the Novgorod dome of the lower nest. A thin child, dressed in ragged clothes and covered in mud, asked worriedly. Mikhailovsky, you said there's corpse starch to eat here, is that true? Look, there are thousands of young people gathered here. Will anyone really give corpse starch to us little burdens who can't do as much as adults? The young man, wearing pants patched together from scraps of cloth and ill-fitting, leaky boots, heavily patted his shoulder. Gregory, don't worry, what I said is guaranteed. This adult also heard that he is a young man, and he has already held an event in another dome. However, there are conditions for eating. I heard that you have to pass a rigorous test. That time, thousands of young people from dozens of domes participated in the test, and only over 300 passed. Mikhailovsky's brown pupils sparkled. As long as you pass, you'll be able to eat your fill at every meal from now on. Gregory subconsciously swallowed. If I can really eat my fill, no matter how difficult the test, I will pass it. As the many youths discussed in 2s and 3s, a young man with brown skin and azure eyes emerged from the darkness. Beside him, a young man of about 14 or 15, heavily struck the iron frame of the high platform with the sheathed chainsword in his hand. The youths were startled and turned to look. Everyone looked at the young man on the stage, dressed in custom-fitted carapace armor. Bukayo looked down and began to speak. Not long ago, I was just like you, a starving lower nest wanderer, but now I can eat whatever I want for every meal. You also have a chance. As long as you can complete my 2 assessments, you will become a member of the Vostronia 3rd Regiment. Look there. Everyone followed his pointing finger and looked towards the dark, open gate from which the sound came. Inside that factory, all light sources have been extinguished. There are a total of 1,000 black stones, like the one in my hand, emitting a faint glow. Without obstruction, you can see them within 1 meter. Anyone who finds one today will receive a standard ration of corpse starch, equivalent to that of an upper nest skilled worker. During the process, any method is allowed as long as you can get it. You can steal, you can rob, you can cooperate, or you can work alone. If you're lucky, you can find a stone, hide it to cover its faint light, and bring it out. Bukayo clapped his hands, drawing the attention of those looking at the factory gate. The important rule is that by exiting the factory with a stone through one of the other 3 exits, you pass the first stage of the test. You must not snatch stones from those who have exited the factory. His azure eyes sharply swept over everyone. The rules are that simple. The assessment begins now. Bukayo watched the youths scrambling into the factory, a smile playing on his lips. The old, weak, sick, and disabled were the most miserable people in the lower nest. His personal experience taught him how much these youths struggled to survive. Most youths in the lower nest would die before adulthood. Those who lived to adulthood were tough characters. Even those fortunate enough to be noticed by gangs, like he once was, could only be said to be barely surviving. As long as they were given a way to live, they would be the most loyal subordinates. Compared to adults who had their own agendas and would look down on his age and physique, these youths were more malleable. Moreover, the youths who passed the 2 tests he set were either excellent in terms of physical strength, intelligence, or had a particular specialty in some area. Just like the youth holding the chainsword, he was strong, had a good mind, and was quite skilled in close-quarters combat. He used a steel pipe to clear 3 checkpoints, and in just 3 work cycles, he learned the first rule of Osbervaya. 1 standard hour later, the first youth ran out of the factory. Gregory clutched the stone, running hard. His clothes were torn, and his shoes were gone, but as he stumbled out and felt the lumen light above him, he knew he had succeeded. Bukayo's second assessment tested stamina. Each youth walked through a narrow passage, and the 300 who lasted the longest passed the assessment. While Bukayo's second assessment was underway, Ning Lu's fleet arrived above the orbit of Sea Cradle. Rosicky connected the data slate to the cogitator and began to introduce the situation of this world. The total area of Sea Cradle is 702 million square kilometers, of which the ocean area is 594 million square kilometers, accounting for 84.62%. The land area consists of 7,381 islands of varying sizes, of which over 1,672 islands are inhabited, with a total population of approximately 17.5 million before the Xenos invasion. Over 17 million people are distributed across 49 islands. Their seafood and grain production ensured the development of Vostronia. The sages hope that you can deal with the invading Xenos on these islands. Chapter 44, The Sailor. Sea Cradle's largest island, Castello Island. 19 Flow Ether Masters, clad in purple-gold robes, led over 3,000 warriors in an assault on the primitive city walls built of stone and timber. The frontal assault zone of the Flow was defended by 10 psykers and 1,000 warriors. Standing on the city wall, directly facing the firepower of 10 Ether Masters, was a woman holding a wooden staff with a skull of a sea beast embedded in its head. Her silhouette was clear and soft, her forehead broad and smooth, her eyebrows thick yet delicate, like 2 exquisite ink lines. Anger flickered in her tea-brown pupils as she raised her fair, tender left arm, and a blue lightning bolt streaked across the sky, wrapping around 3 psykers. Countless tiny arcs of electricity, like living things, burrowed into the Flow, erupting with crackling sounds. Accompanied by the flashing blue light, the Ether Masters bled from their mouths and noses, their white hair turned to charcoal and slid off as their Flow bodies trembled. The other 7 psykers each raised their staves and attacked the city wall, their cunning nature as space pirates driving them to attack other weaker islanders to exhaust the powerful enemy. Flames soared, mercilessly engulfing several islanders who were firing Vostronia laser guns. Several islanders, who were wielding chainswords to block the attacks of the Flow warriors, were flung into the air by an invisible force, crashing into the islanders rushing up the city wall. The Psyker's ferocious attack instantly caused dozens of islanders to be severely wounded. The female Psyker bit her full and elastic lips tightly, aiming her staff at the commander beside her, who had lost a small portion of his body. With the infusion of biopsychic energy, his bronze body recovered at a visible speed. The commander propped himself up with his hands and rose from the ground. He noticed the female shaman beside him. "Malina shaman, you should leave quickly. We can't hold on." "No." Malina, with her straight nose bridge, lifted her chin and said firmly, "I saw it. The Sea Mother showed me the arrival of a giant from the sky, and he will save our homeland." The commander swung his sword, killing a Flow warrior who had rushed onto the wall, and then kicked him forcefully, sending him tumbling down from the 11-meter-high city wall. He looked up at the clear blue sky, where 3 Alepha with orange bellies flew overhead, spreading their azure wings. A bitter smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He had already confirmed that the shaman's prophecy, which foretold an alien invasion and the Vostronia people not arriving in time, was false this time. "She's just trying to boost morale." Just as he was about to avert his gaze, he suddenly saw a red dot, the size of a grain of rice, in the sky, gradually growing larger. The commander rubbed his eyes, then shouted frantically, "They're here! The reinforcements are here!" Malena's lips curved upward. She raised her staff with both hands, mobilizing all the power within her body. The hearts of all Flow within dozens of meters in front of her pounded rapidly, their blood surged and boiled, and their skin color instantly darkened. With a roar, they lost consciousness and stumbled to the ground. The 7 Ether Masters who were still alive also felt their bodies go limp and fell to the ground. Malina swayed, leaning on her staff to keep from falling. She lifted her head and saw a figure dominating the sky. The giant was identical to the figure she had seen in the Coral Sea. Malina strained to turn her head, following that figure. He crashed heavily among the aliens, and the earth shook, the city walls trembled. Hundreds of aliens were instantly killed by the shock, and hundreds of rogues fell. Just as the Ether Masters struggled to their feet from the blood-boiling effect, a tremendous force surged from behind them, throwing them into the air. They strained to turn their heads, and their wide field of vision allowed them to see a giant appear before them just as they had turned halfway, then they lost consciousness. The commander watched as the heads of 7 powerful aliens were instantly sent flying, their deep purple blood splattering the ground, and he opened his mouth, dirt splashing into it. When he spat out the mud from his mouth, the area before him was filled with dismembered alien limbs. Ning Lu did not stop, leading Maria and the other 2, and charged towards the Flow. When he had overlooked Castello Island from the air earlier, he had already seen that large areas of the island had been plundered and destroyed by the aliens, with only this largest city and 3 smaller ones still desperately holding on. While Ning Lu was slaughtering the aliens, Chznney excitedly jumped out of the assault boat and plunged into the clear blue sea. As soon as his body entered the sea, he felt completely at ease, like a fish released into the wild. An Ether Master was drawn by the sound. He quickly came to the beach, used his psychokinesis to support his body, and temporarily floated on the water's surface. On the assault boat, 2 warriors of the Vostronia 4th Regiment raised their laser guns, and beams of light shot towards the Flow Psyker. The Ether Master raised a hand, conjuring a protective field. The laser beams struck the force shield, creating invisible ether ripples. Just as the Flow Psyker blocked the attack, he suddenly felt his ankles grabbed. Before the Ether Master could mobilize his ether energy, he was dragged downwards by a tremendous force, falling into the sea with a splash. He desperately mobilized his ether energy, trying to use psychokinesis to force Chznney away. Chznney felt the aliens struggle. Illusory fish scales appeared on the backs of his hands, and his fingers tightened with frantic force. The Ether Master opened his mouth in pain, and seawater poured into his mouth. Although they had shark-like heads, the Flow were not fish. Like other drowning victims, the more he struggled, the faster he sank. The sailor, however, was completely unaffected. He had already tested that he could easily dive for over 17 minutes even without any equipment. The alien was dragged down rapidly. Although he was an ether master, he was not skilled in bio-ether spells and could not create oxygen for himself, which was fatal for a flow who needed to breathe. Chznney felt the resistance weakening. He gave a sharp tug, wrapped his arms around the alien's neck, and twisted with force. The sailor could perfectly exert his excellent strength even underwater, and the flayo's head was directly twisted off by Chznney. He kicked the ether master's corpse further underwater and swam upwards. Chznney surfaced over 100 meters in a few seconds, when he suddenly felt the seawater below him fluctuate abnormally. He immediately drew his waterproof chainsword, pressed the activation button with his finger, and vigilantly looked downwards. The alien's corpse is gone. Chznney became even more vigilant, his eyes searching all around. A moment later, he found nothing and could only surface reluctantly. He still had to command his subordinates to attack Trinio, the second largest island of Sea Cradle. Ning Lu cleared the entire island of aliens 5 hours after landing on Castello Island. He met the female psyker he had noticed when overlooking the area. His gaze met her tea-brown pupils, and he was surprised to find that her pupils merely contracted, but she showed no expression of pain. Her will is very firm. When she looked at me, she was uncomfortable, but it wasn't agony. She is even stronger than Howard and Maria, the strongest person I have seen since I crashed in Vostronia until now. As Ning Lu pondered, the shaman bowed and spoke in Vostronia Low Gothic. Malina Scala greets you and thanks you for your rescue. Chapter 45, Tyranny Surrender. The bronze-skinned commander dared not look directly at Ning Lu, his gaze fixed on Ning Lu's chest, staring at the deep purple bloodstains. I am, Thierry Barrera, the Tyranny, warrior leader. Our patriarch was killed by evil Xenos during negotiations, and I am temporarily acting as patriarch. As a high-ranking member of the Tyranny, Thierry had contact with Vostronia representatives and had a rudimentary grasp of Low Gothic. As he spoke, he gradually recalled. Ning Lu had previously reviewed information about the Sea Cradle. The locals called their people Sicilians, in memory of their ancient home on Terra. The Tyranny were the largest branch of the Sicilians, occupying Castello Island and establishing a small kingdom consisting of 1 town and 19 villages. Thank you for your rescue. Without your arrival, we would have become corpses under the Xenos' blades. Thierry said gratefully, without the giants' arrival, the Tyranny might have been annihilated. The invading Xenos are called Flow. They have established a nomadic empire among the stars. More directly, they are pirates in space. I can tell you that 1 Flow capital ship and 5 escort ships escaped. They know the way to this world, and they will come again. There are even more terrifying Xenos and evil entities in the universe. This beautiful world will suffer calamities. Thierry was stunned. He thought of the Xenos named Flow that the giant mentioned. Their warriors were stronger than tribal warriors, and they also had evil shamans. If not for Malina, the Tyranny would have been annihilated. When they invade again, can the Tyranny survive this ordeal? He looked worriedly at the tall shaman, hoping to receive comforting guidance from her. Malena's tea-brown eyes deepened, and her voice became ethereal, as if an otherworldly sound emanated from another space. He is right. I see flames burning, seas of blood rising. Ning Lu keenly noticed the colorful light emanating from Malina, with faint, almost imperceptible fine threads floating around her. A familiar feeling, it's the warp, threads of fate. She is performing a psychic vision. He also noticed a strange shimmer within the colorful light. Just as he was about to grasp this trace, the colorful light dissipated. Ning Lu pondered for a moment, understanding the scene he had just witnessed. Malina is a psyker, and she was performing a psychic vision just now. The Emperor endowed this body with acute perception, supernatural perception, not just on a physical level, but also involving the warp. However, the Emperor dislikes psykers. He did not implant this knowledge into my gene seed memory, hoping I would use it vaguely by instinct. This means that if I put some effort into this area, I will quickly develop abilities related to warp perception. Ning Lu also thought of what Guilliman would tell Felix in the future. Deep within all our souls lies a fragment from the warp. I should appropriately explore this ability and integrate it with the Gene Seed Primarch's combat power and extraordinary abilities. As his thoughts drifted, Malina parted her red lips, her voice returning to a solemn and magnetic tone. I saw a broken fragment in the obscure future. It was shrouded in black mist, but I believe it is definitely related to you. Ning Lu looked at Malina, whose face was pale from the psychic vision. He did not want to waste time arguing, so he spoke directly. My name is Ning Lu. I am from Vostronia and rule 4 hive cities. I will also unify Vostronia and become the monarch of that world. Thierry frowned tightly. He knew that Vostronia not only had various noble families but also servants of the Omnitia, members of the Mechanicus who served Mars. He instinctively wanted to refute the arrogant words, but the giant's confident and resolute tone seemed to contain a certain power, like a prophecy, a different kind of prophecy from the shamans. If the Sicilians submit to me, I will provide you with protection. Ning Lu lightly gripped his heavy halberd. If Thierry refused, he would directly use force until the tyranny recognized reality. The output of the sea cradle was crucial to Vostronia and to the nation he intended to build. Without food, the fires of rebellion could erupt at any time. The sea cradle, which he classified as an agricultural world, must be under his control. Cold sweat trickled down Thierry's forehead. He felt mountain-like pressure. Having witnessed the giant's godlike combat power, he knew that if he refused, there would be only one outcome: death. Even Malina could not save him. But he also remembered his responsibilities. As the leader of the tyranny, he should consider the entire tribe. If I refuse, the entire tribe will be immediately annihilated. If I agree, we temporarily escape the crisis, but in the future, we might suffer a crisis more tragic than extinction. He might enslave us. Just as he struggled internally, Malina spoke. Thierry, submit to him. I think the hope in that black mist is brought by him. The shaman's words broke Thierry's last resistance. Shaman Malina, I trust your psychic vision. On behalf of the tyranny, I pledge my loyalty to you. A wise choice, Ning Lu said gravely, making a promise: you will not regret today's choice. He then issued a command: reorganize the tyranny warriors. We will clear all the Flow Xenos from this world. There was no need to requisition food. Some of the supplies plundered by the Flow had not yet been transported to their ships. Based on what he had seen earlier, he estimated that, along with potential spoils from other large islands, they would fill his fleet's cargo holds. Wojciech, under his command, had already organized pilots and crew to begin transportation. As Thierry carried out the orders, Ning Lu turned his gaze to Malina. Are you a shaman? Yes, my lord. Which deity do you worship? Malina smiled brightly and raised her hand, gesturing. Please follow me. Maria and the other two watched Malina warily, gripping their weapons. Shamans were witches, and witches were dangerous and evil beings in the eyes of the Vostronia people. Ning Lu followed Malina, walking along until they reached the sea. The female shaman looked straight ahead. The tyranny worshipped the Coral Sea, but not everyone can feel its presence. However, I believe you certainly can. Ning Lu walked to the edge of the sea, his eyes fixed on the azure ocean. His gaze penetrated the seawater, seeing the diverse and colorful corals on the nearshore beach. They either stretched like winding antlers, or were round and plump like mushrooms, and there were even tree-shaped corals standing tall, like an underwater tropical rainforest. In the deep blue seawater, the coral reefs displayed various colors such as pink, emerald green, and pure white, as if they were nature's most exquisite palette. Ning Lu immediately knew the reason for the name of this sea area, but he felt that Malina's tone held a deeper meaning. He did not ask, his black eyes quietly gazing at the sea, and there was nothing special in his psychic vision. Ning Lu used meditation to calm his mind, trying to find the peculiar sensation he had experienced when he first noticed Malina's strangeness. Chapter 46, The Upheaval of Vostronia. Vostronia, the shantytown on the outskirts of the Upper Yansk Hive City, where the second altar is located. The woman in blue robes pushed back her hood with her clawed hand, revealing a head shaped like a tilted moon. After emitting a strange cry incomprehensible to ordinary people, her bird-like beak opened, and she spoke in a sharp voice to the numerous mutants. The Hive City dwellers see you as pests, as abominable mutated creatures. Is this true? Of course not. The blue-robed woman's left arm extended, reaching within an arm's length of the nearest mutant, blue flames igniting in her clawed hand. Mutation is a gift from the God of Wisdom. You are the fortunate ones chosen for enlightenment. Follow me, and you will receive enlightenment from the God of Wisdom. You will be blessed. You will reclaim the Hive City that rightfully belongs to you. You will tear those foolish people who despise you into pieces, and you will even trample those high and mighty noble lords and mechanical fools who worship false gods underfoot. The mutants let out excited howls. The woman's words ignited the anger in their hearts and stirred their desires. A mutant with a tumor on his eyelid whimpered, his legs trembling, letting out a sharp howl. Let's invade the Hive City, reclaim our food, and tear those maggots to shreds. The surrounding mutants, including those from other shantytowns, excitedly joined in the chant. Let's invade the Hive City, reclaim our food, and tear those maggots to shreds. The blue-robed woman floated up excitedly, warp energy surging. The time for enlightenment has arrived. As the mutants of Vostronia stirred up a storm, Ning Lu, by the coral sea in the sea cradle, shifted his gaze. A faint light appeared on the azure sea, a light that was weak yet so dazzling. It was the light rising from the Sea of Souls. Ning Lu understood in his heart that the ocean before him, due to the long-term worship of countless Sicilians, and perhaps some special opportunity, was now shining in the warp. He was already on the path of ascension, transcending the mundane. This situation was not uncommon in this world. In the underground sea of the Necromunda Hive City, there was a Cthulhu that had gained divinity through generations of worship by fishmen. Worshipping the ocean was not particularly strange. Shamanism has three main objects of worship: ancestor worship, nature worship, and animal worship. Even 10,000 years later, when the imperial cult had long become the mainstream faith, the lower nest of Necromunda was still filled with countless bizarre cults. There were shamanistic cults that worshipped sewage pits, sects that worshipped metal pipes, and even cults that worshipped damaged demon engines. Even beliefs could give birth to new deities in the warp due to worship. The goddess Tauva was the embodiment of the Toe Empire's greater good, political philosophy, born from the faith of countless subservient races. This Sea Mother was similar, but it was too weak compared to even the lesser chaos gods, existing solely through the worship of its followers. The waves of the Sea of Souls could likely tear its fragile consciousness apart. Outsiders call it the Coral Sea, but we Sicilians call her the Sea Mother. She provides us with food and shelter. Ning Lu's pupils suddenly constricted, and the faint light in his vision shifted, revealing a blurry, incomplete image. Two tentacles, densely covered with teeth at their tips, wrapped around the bodies of a steel warrior and a bronze-skinned Sicilian. Sharp teeth tore through the flesh and burrowed inside. The image then disappeared, the light growing dimmer. I saw the image the Sea Mother showed me, and I believe you also saw the image she showed you. That sea monster is called a tooth-eating octopus. Its body is like an octopus, but the mouths at the tips of its tentacles are filled with sharp teeth. The smallest adult tooth-eating octopus is as large as a room, and their size continues to grow with feeding. The largest one we've witnessed was the size of an island. Every time it surfaces, it causes a storm. Malena's tone was filled with disgust, and Ning Lu, looking over, saw her dim sadness and hatred. They are despicable predators, sacrilegious creatures. Sicilians and creatures of the sea alike cannot escape their disgusting bites. The Gene Seed Primarch already understood why the Coral Sea showed him the sea monster. The tooth-eating octopus posed a threat to his faith, and it wanted to use his hands to eliminate this monster. Clearly, the Coral Sea already possesses a certain level of intelligence. It understands what will make me act, and that is a threat to the lives of my subordinates. Moreover, the Sicilians are also my people. Thinking this, Ning Lu spoke. If the sea monster dares to appear before me, I will kill it. The Sea Mother showing you this image means that a sea monster has already been attracted. She paused, then said with both mockery and sadness. Sea monsters have an endless craving for flesh and blood. The blood from the conflict between the Xenos and the Sicilians will surely attract these predators. Follow me. Ning Lu took Malina and found Thierry. The bronze-skinned man bowed and then reported. My king, I have completed the reorganization of the Tyranny Sea Guard. Currently, there are 1,952 warriors able to participate in combat. Depart immediately for the neighboring island of Grosseto. After Chznney eliminated the Flow Xenos of Trinio, he followed Ning Lu's orders and found the chieftain. The chieftain, whose most warriors had fallen, ultimately chose to surrender to the well-equipped steel warriors. Chznney immediately ordered a rest and began recruiting warriors to replenish the Sea Guard, which numbered less than 1,000. Due to the urgency of time, his screening method was simple. In batches of 100, they would dive into the water to retrieve coral, and the fastest 7 to return would become new recruits for the 4th Regiment. The candidates for the 5th batch returned one after another. As the steel warriors stood by the sea checking, more than a dozen tentacles emerged from the water. 2 of these tentacles wrapped around the waists of an islander and a steel warrior, respectively. Chznney was greatly surprised. He immediately took out his laser rifle from his back, aimed at the swaying tentacles, and pulled the trigger. The light beam precisely hit the tentacles, and white smoke rose. Although the target was precisely hit, the sailor felt no joy in his heart. He clearly saw that the tentacles had already burrowed into the bodies of the 2 individuals. Jorginho, with bronze skin, who had passed the 3rd wave of assessment, had learned some language during his dealings with the Vostronia people and was temporarily appointed as a platoon leader by Chznney. He shouted loudly to the regimental commander in Low Gothic, "It's a tooth-eating octopus, a vile man-eating sea monster." Upon hearing this, Chznney drew his chainsword and strode forward, simultaneously issuing an immediate command. Attack! The warriors of the Vostronia 4th Regiment immediately attacked the tentacles with their weapons. Chznney pressed the central power rune, and phantom scales appeared on his arm. Using the slicing technique of the 7th rule of Osbervia, he slashed at the incoming tentacles. The sailor's immense strength cut off a section of tentacle over a meter long. An earth-shattering roar of anger erupted, and the calm sea surface exploded like a tsunami. Dozens of islanders and steel warriors were thrown into the air by the huge waves. Chznney stared in shock as an island-sized monster emerged from the sea. Jorginho screamed in terror, "It's the tentacle tooth. He's the most terrifying tooth-eating octopus." At the same time, Chznney, who had been sent flying by a tentacle, personally experienced the sea monster's terror. His chainsword was knocked away, and his right arm was broken. "I can only ask my lord for help. Only he can kill this monster." Chapter 47. Subspace Insight. As soon as Ning Lu conquered Grosseto Island, he received a plea for help from Chznney. He immediately boarded an aircraft and flew towards Trinio. When he saw the giant sea monster named Zongya, he couldn't help but marvel at the enormous size of this gnawing octopus. Malena's eyes were filled with hatred. Zongya is the largest gnawing octopus, it has devoured countless Sicilians. As soon as she finished speaking, she saw the giant leap down. After Chznney cut off the sea monster's tentacles, it immediately launched a frantic attack. He dodged clumsily, but the gnawing octopus, unlike ordinary octopuses, didn't have just 8 tentacles, it had dozens. He was flung away several times, but fortunately, his subordinates opened fire in time, distracting the pressure and allowing him to barely hold on until now. This also provoked a furious counterattack from the sea monster. The 4th Regiment suffered heavy losses, with at least dozens of warriors who had undergone less steel modification and over 100 candidates being eaten by the gnawing octopus. The morale of the Trinio people collapsed. They scattered and fled, shouting in terror in a local Low Gothic dialect that Chznney couldn't understand. Only Jorginho stayed by the regimental commander's side, loudly scolding his kinsmen and gathering 13 new recruits who had passed the selection. Just as the 4th Regiment was in crisis, a huge figure descended from the sky, smashing onto the gnawing octopus's elongated head. Chznney's eyes lit up as he watched Ning Lu plunge his heavy halberd deep into one of the sea monster's compound eyes. The steel warriors watched as the gnawing octopus, as if struck by a meteorite, was slammed into the sea, raising towering waves 100 meters high. They gazed reverently at the towering figure standing on the sea surface, erupting in thunderous cheers. Perrin, god of thunder. Sventovit, god of war. They each associated Ning Lu with the images of the old night gods, rushing into the sea like pilgrims, launching a frenzied attack on the tentacles. Ning Lu pulled out his heavy halberd, blood staining the sea surface, and Zhongya let out a painful wail. The Gene Seed Primarch keenly sensed that the previous attack had not been fatal to the gnawing octopus. This massive sea monster possessed a vitality matching its body, and its eyes were not its fatal weakness. A whistling sound of wind echoed behind him. Ning Lu flipped forward, simultaneously leaving a deep gash on the sea monster's elongated, runway-like head mantle. He activated psychic vision, and at the same time, tried to observe Zhongya in the same way he had captured the Sea Mother before, to find weaknesses that his physical senses hadn't detected. Dozens of giant, python-like tentacles thrashed wildly. Zhongya hadn't been injured for over 1,000 years, and it furiously tried to swallow the hateful prey on its head. On the aircraft, Malina raised her staff with both hands, aiming at the vile creature that had devoured countless members of her tribe. Two brilliant beams of light shot from the skull, striking the tentacles. Cells boiled and burned, and the great tentacles instantly turned into glowing red serpent bodies, thrashing madly. With a loud crack, the tentacle burst into 1,000 pieces, scattering in all directions. Having succeeded with one strike, Malina, however, furrowed her delicate brows. Zhongya's vitality is so strong, one strike only managed to burst one of its tentacles. At the same time, Maria and the other two injected the Kurnikova family's battle potion into their bodies. Tessiwei Si-Na rapidly pulled the trigger of her weapon, emptying the energy magazine in an instant, and a curved rain of light blasted the sea monster's head. The other two assassins leapt down. Dementiva held her riot shield tightly to her side and slammed it hard onto the gnawing octopus's head. Maria swung her scimitar, drawing an arc that cleaved a tentacle flung by Zhongya. As she landed, she plunged the flow glass blade hard into its slimy head. The overlord of the Coral Sea let out an earth-shattering roar, its remaining compound eyes bloodshot, and it angrily raised its head. Maria and Dementiva raised their weapons, intending to plunge them into the sea monster's head. As they swung their arms with force, tentacles flew through the air, striking their arms. As the two women were flung away, Zhongya's head had risen to its highest point, but it was still dozens of meters from the aircraft. Tessiwei Si-Na, having changed her energy magazine, pulled the trigger, sweeping her fire across the gaping maw. Malina inwardly thought, "This is bad." She shouted in Vostronia Low Gothic, "Quick, get out of the way. It's going to spray ink." The pilot had no time to think and instinctively pulled the control stick, frantically trying to evade. Black ink splattered on the bottom of the aircraft, and the streamlined airship spun out of control in the air. The pilot struggled to stabilize the aircraft, cold sweat pouring down his body. The ink had almost hit the airship's nose. While everyone was in disarray from Zhongya's attack, Ning Lu found an opportunity. He once again entered that wondrous state. He felt as if he stood in the air, overlooking the entire sea area, the entire battlefield encompassed within his sight. What he saw was not everyone's movements, but everyone's projection in the warp, the ripples on the Sea of Souls. The fear of the Trinio people and the pilot, the faith of the Steel Warriors, Malena's overwhelming hatred. Most crucially, Ning Lu saw Zhongya's projection in the warp. Within the octopus's body, the most peculiar part was its ink sac, which displayed two opposing lights, the shining light of life wrapped around the pitch blackness of countless lives wailing in pain. At the same time, with psychic vision activated, he also saw the spiritual light flickering on it. Ning Lu understood. The ink sac of the gnawing octopus is both their weakness and an extraordinary material. Zhongya's role completely exposed its weakness. Catching the opportunity, he allowed his body to slide down naturally. Ning Lu swung his heavy halberd fiercely in the air, precisely stabbing into the top edge of the ink sac beneath the gnawing octopus's head. He twisted his body, and the heavy halberd in his hand traced an arc, sliding down to the lower right. The gene-seed Primarch's body seemed to defy gravity. He, along with the heavy halberd in his hand, like a butcher's sharp blade, cut along the edge of the ink sac. Zhongya felt its head being cut open below. It tried desperately to change its upward falling trajectory, but it couldn't control its body like Ning Lu could in such an inhuman way. Its massive body tilted slightly to the right and slammed heavily into the sea. Amidst the wind and waves, Ning Lu strode forward in a wide arc. The entire ink sac, perfectly intact with its skin, was cut off by him. The gene-seed Primarch grabbed the slippery gnawing octopus skin and pulled hard. Zhongya's tentacles thrashed weakly. As the ink sac left its body, its life rapidly drained away. In Ning Lu's perception, as he landed in the sea, the point of light that was Zhongya in the Sea of Souls also extinguished. The gene-seed Primarch, having successfully unleashed his potential, couldn't help but smile. I should give this ability a name. It's different from a psyker's etheric vision and an extraordinary's psychic vision. When I use this ability, seeing the emotions of creatures is merely a side effect. Its more crucial function is to pinpoint the enemy's weaknesses. This ability is somewhat similar to the extraordinary ability, Weakness Detection, from the Red Priest Pathway Sequence 5, but it's not activated from a mystical perspective. Instead, it observes directly through the warp. Given that, let's call it, subspace insight. Ning Lu thought of the 11th Legion he would soon take over from the Emperor. I wonder how many of my gene-seed Primarchs have unlocked the subspace insight ability I inherited. The Trinio people looked at the giant dragging back the ink sac, their eyes filled with worship. He had actually killed Zhongya, the beast of the Coral Sea, ending the Sicilians' thousand-year nightmare. Malina, stepping down from the aircraft, walked towards Ning Lu and bowed deeply. Thank you for killing Zhongya. With its head, the Sicilians will pledge their loyalty to you. Chapter 48, Malena's Request. After Ning Lu ordered Chznney to reorganize the 4th Regiment, he avoided everyone's sight and returned to the disordered country. He confirmed again that the gnawing octopus's ink sac was not among the potion materials already unlocked on the blasphemous slate. The potion formulas for Sequence 9 and Sequence 8 were all unlocked, but only the Bribers and the Adjacent Paths Inquisitor could view the Sequence 7 potion formulas. Ning Lu placed the ink sac alone in a palace on the first layer of the true space, then fell into thought, based on his knowledge of potion materials. Higher-grade potion materials generally contain more spirituality, and are also more difficult to collect. The Flayo's Night Shard is clearly harder to obtain than the Lung Spider's Lung Sac. The gnawing octopus's ink sac contains more spirituality and is also harder to obtain. It should be a mid-sequence potion material, and it's the first mid-sequence material I've obtained. Extraordinary beings of Sequence 9, Sequence 8, and Sequence 7 belong to the low sequences, while Sequence 6 and Sequence 5 are mid-sequences. Ning Lu stared at the ink sac, analyzing further. The materials required for potion formulas seem to contain a certain inherent logic. The barbarian needs an Ogren's arm, which is the most obvious. The arbitrator's gavel is also related to this. The sailor's siren stone is also related to water. As for the less obvious ones, I haven't yet discovered the hidden inherent logic, and the source of spirituality in the potion materials remains undetermined. He turned and walked out of the palace. Based on this, the ink sac comes from the ocean, and should be a potion material from the Tyrant Path, where the sailor belongs. After Ning Lu returned to the real world, he gathered everyone to receive a briefing. My king, a total of 117 veterans died, and 27 new recruits. Chznney gloomily finished his report first. His regiment suffered heavy losses from a sea monster, which made him extremely depressed. He wished he could tear it to pieces, but he was stopped by that female shaman. Just then, Malina stepped forward. I have a suggestion that can help you win the loyalty of the Sicilians in a short time. Oh, Ning Lu said, intrigued, speak. The octopus's fangs have caused countless deaths among the Sicilians. If you send Trinio with a part of its limb to various tribes to proclaim your achievements, you will win their loyalty. In the Coral Sea, there is no second gnawing octopus with such a massive body. Since that is the case, we will try it according to your suggestion. Ning Lu accepted Ma Lena's suggestion. For him, the loss was merely a little less meat. My lord, I request to carry it out myself. Upon hearing this, Chznney immediately requested, and his slight annoyance with the female shaman disappeared. I'll leave it to you. After Ning Lu granted Chznney's request, he immediately went to the seaside to dismember the octopus's fangs. The tentacles were cut off one by one, and the head was also divided into 7 different parts. Ma Lena's suggestion was effective. After the 4th Regiment killed the Flow who invaded the islands, when the Trinio brought out the octopus's limbs and told the story of Ning Lu descending from the sky to kill the overlord of the Coral Sea, the various Sicilian tribes gladly joined. The Sea Guards all requested to join Ning Lu's command. The 4th Regiment continued to implement the selection standards previously set by Chznney. 2 stellar days later, the 4th Regiment was fully staffed. After Chznney reported to Ning Lu, he received an order to continue recruiting Sea Guards, with no upper limit. Just as the conquest of the Sea Cradle was rapidly advancing, Ning Lu received a communication from Rosicky. King Ning Lu, a riot has broken out in Vostronia. Mutants from over 13 hive cities have launched attacks on the hive cities. Riots have also broken out in Luke Bo and Tezvok, which you control. Ning Lu frowned slightly. There were no signs of mutant riots when he left. He instinctively felt that there seemed to be a force behind the scenes pushing it. What is the scale of the riot? Unfortunately, there is no detailed information at the moment. I suggest you return to Vostronia immediately. Upon hearing this, Ning Lu fell into deep thought. Most of the Flow in the Sea Cradle have been cleared out. The remaining few Xenos can be handled by the warriors led by Chznney. His black eyes sparkled. He realized this was an opportunity. The mutant riot is also a good opportunity for me to conquer Vostronia. Thinking of this, he immediately made a decision. 3 stellar hours later, Ning Lu gathered everyone for a meeting. After listening to their progress reports, he issued orders. Chznney, you will temporarily be in charge of all armed forces in the Sea Cradle. Your mission is to continue conquering all Sicilian tribes and kill all invading Xenos. My lord, I will definitely complete your mission. Regarding the task I gave you before, do you have any talented individuals among your subordinates? Chznney was well prepared. My lord, the minds of those steel warriors were twisted by that crazy king. They are qualified warriors, but not talented individuals who can stand alone. Among the new recruits I enlisted locally, Jorginho is a talented individual. In the conquest, he participated in the battles of 5 islands and independently persuaded 3 Sicilian tribes to pledge allegiance to you. Since that is the case, after the meeting, have him follow me back to Vostronia. During his conquest, Ning Lu collected potion materials including siren stone and rapeseed, which could cultivate sailors and cultivators. However, he would not just pick anyone to become an extraordinary being, assessment was necessary. Ning Lu already had a preliminary plan for this. He could not personally observe every extraordinary being throughout, especially after his return to the Imperium. He decided to establish a recommendation mechanism, where extraordinary beings he personally cultivated would recommend talents to him, and then he would keep these people by his side for final observation. Thierry, your mission is to rebuild tyranny and restore food supply capabilities as soon as possible. As you command, my king. Thierry respectfully obeyed. Upon learning that Ning Lu had slain the octopus's fangs, his slight dissatisfaction from being forced to submit completely vanished, and he sincerely submitted to the godlike giant. Malina. Ning Lu looked at the shaman. Before he could speak, she spoke first. I wish to accompany you to Vostronia. Ning Lu was surprised that Malina would make such a request. He asked curiously, why do you make this request? Malena's tea-brown eyes sparkled, and her face showed a look of longing. I have long wanted to go to the Star Sea and see the world outside. Now, finally, I have the opportunity. I wish to follow you and serve you. Ning Lu nodded slightly. Malina was a powerful psychic, even stronger than Thierry. Taking her with him would not only provide a capable subordinate, but without her, the highly respected shaman, in the sea cradle, Chznney would also be better able to control this world for him. Thinking of this, he spoke. Good, you shall leave with me. After Ning Lu returned to the Pishek with Malina, Jorginho, and other subordinates, he ordered to set sail, then returned to his dormitory, entered the disordered country, and prepared the omniscient potion. As several Legion members have asked when Ning Lu will return, I will explain here. First, I did not force the return time to coincide with the listing time, although it would be better for initial subscriptions. Second, specifically for the plot of the first volume, there are still 12 plot points not yet written. Once they are finished, he will return to the Imperium and begin the second volume, Great Crusade. Note: not every plot point can be completed within a single chapter. Let me share my thoughts. Ning Lu does not rely on a golden finger potion system and gene seed Primarch to get everything easily. He will establish a small realm on the level of a rogue traitor dynasty before returning to the Imperium. GW does not have a clear definition of a rogue traitor dynasty. The Agamemnus dynasty's assets were mostly concentrated on one ship, but it was still called a dynasty. My definition is, possessing a powerful fleet and a self-sustaining world system. A self-sustaining world system consists of administrative planets, agricultural worlds, industrial worlds, and at least one economic world type that can create huge economic value. Vostronia is an administrative and industrial world, the Sea Cradle is an agricultural world. Afterwards, there will be warp travel to occupy an economic world in another star system. I don't want to achieve this through gene seed Primarchs, that would be too easy and lack personal effort. Of course, after returning, I will dispatch the Legion to conquer numerous worlds. Those who understand the circumstances of the gene seed Primarchs return should know that no gene seed Primarch, including Guilliman and Dorn, achieved this. Finally, I know that most readers hope for a quick return. I will appropriately speed up the pace, but I still need to finish the necessary plot points outlined in my synopsis. The first volume is expected to have a total of 70 chapters, and it will be released after his return. Chapter 49, Awakening Memories. Wojciech Belik took a deep breath. He straightened his red robe, and just as he was about to press the doorbell, the airlock roared open, and Ning Lu's low voice came. Come in. The middle-aged man with neat brown short hair froze for a moment. Thinking of the king's various powerful abilities, it was not surprising that he sensed his arrival. Through the gate, Wojciech respectfully said, My king, you summoned me. Ning Lu nodded slightly. You have completed the work I entrusted to you very well. I have decided to bestow a reward upon you. It is my honor to serve you. Wojciech bowed and said. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw the golden potion in the palm of the giant's open left hand. His brown eyes trembled, and after a moment of silence, he picked up the potion and drank it. As the potion entered his stomach, Wojciech trembled all over, and a knowledge explosion occurred in his mind. Awakening Memories allowed him to fully recall all the texts, data, and books he had read before, and to quickly understand and master them. Wojciech clearly distinguished the difference. His past understanding of knowledge came from the tech priest's teachings, which were religious worship and rituals. Now, he understood everything he had experienced from a fundamental perspective, as if he was re-experiencing his life of dealing with machines from a completely new viewpoint. When Wojciech previously selected high molecular polymers to make waterproof paint, he only relied on the epoxy resins listed in the appendix of Chapter 23. Material Guidance, of the Open Double Angle Bracket Omniscia Guide Close Double Angle Bracket, which were suitable for use in the Sea Cradle. Now he knew that the reason epoxy resin was the optimal choice was because this material is a hard, high molecular chemical material with high strength, high toughness, waterproof and weather resistance, and corrosion resistance, making it suitable for high strength and corrosive seawater environments. Wojciech, who had suffered a subversive impact, was stunned for a long time before realizing that he was floating in the air, and the red-robed figure below was his own body. Do as I say. Ning Lu's majestic voice rang out, and Wojciech was infected. He subconsciously did as the giant said, gradually calming down. One standard ship hour later, Wojciech mastered meditation and returned to a normal state, but he still hadn't recovered, staring blankly at the giant in front of him. He can actually bestow such power upon me. How is this possible? Could he be the incarnation of the Omniscia? He was silent for another 10 seconds before speaking. My king, thank you for your grace. I will surely make good use of the power you bestowed to serve you. Ning Lu sensed Wojciech's emotional fluctuations and knew that he would need some time to adapt to the world's transformation. He would also give him time to adjust. Go back and rest. Afterwards, I want you to decipher the secrets in this data crystal. Ning Lu opened his right hand, revealing a crystal clear, artificially processed, perfectly regular cylindrical object in his palm, 12 centimeters long and 5 centimeters in diameter. The Flow, skilled in etheric mysteries, primarily stored knowledge and other information in crystals. While Ning Lu began his research, he also wanted the Omniscient to give it a try. As you command, my king. Wojciech carefully took the data crystal. His spirits lifted. Compared to pondering whether Ning Lu was the incarnation of the Omniscia, he was more accustomed to technical work. After Wojciech left, Ning Lu also took out a data crystal and began to study it. At the same moment, in Tezvok's Handmancy dome, an old man in a blue robe, with a hunched body that suddenly bent upwards at the chest, raised his claw-like left hand. He squeezed hard, and the foreman, who was several meters away and rushing over with a wrench, immediately felt his throat being gripped by an invisible hand. I really didn't expect you scum from the lower nest to sacrifice yourselves for an upper nest person who oppressed you. The bald foreman shouted intermittently, Protect, Howard, sir. The workers in the scorched workshop waved their steel pipes and charged forward. The arbitrators' charisma had won the hearts of the workers. They were now fighting not for food, but for their leader. Truly admirable. The claw-like hand rubbed the snake-like swaying tentacles, and the blue-robed old man exclaimed in surprise. Howard Fend, the qualities in you amaze me. I give you a chance. Believe in the God of wisdom and join the great work of enlightenment. His ears twitched, listening to a voice from an unknown place. Yes, join us, and you will achieve great things. I can tell you, don't count on your subordinates. Howard saw the bald foreman fall and was stunned for a moment. The simple joy of receiving tuna and water flashed through his mind. Now, he charged forward to protect himself, holding a wrench that was hardly a weapon, attacking the terrifying enemy who had killed the captain of the guard. He then saw the workers in the dome falling one by one under the mutant's attack, but no one retreated, and he understood in his heart. This is the power my lord spoke of. But Howard also knew that fighting spirit could not bridge the gap in strength. The wizard opposite was too terrifying. In the order he had issued to gather his 5th Regiment subordinates, enough time had passed for them to run several round trips, but they still hadn't appeared. They must have encountered obstacles. I must kill the psychic wizard. Howard raised his arm, aiming the heavy logging gun at the wizard. The sound of gunfire erupted, and a dense barrage of bullets covered the wizard's body. A foolish choice. The wizard raised his staff, and psychokinesis erupted, forming an invisible force field in front of him. The rapidly firing bullets suddenly stopped, then, under mechanical influence, control, changed direction in midair. The wizard then flicked his hand, and the bullets shot out, and the only 4 remaining Fend family guards fell in a pool of blood. The bullets hit the finely crafted power armor, making dull thudding sounds, then dropped to the ground. Howard noticed that there were several bullet holes of varying depths on the armor on his chest. He let go of the heavy logging gun and swung the drill, charging towards the wizard. The blue-robed psychic shook his head. He raised his left claw, and the rotating, roaring drill stopped when it was still an arm's length away from him. His colorful pupils were full of mockery, looking at the foolish noble in front of him. The blue-robed psychic froze for a moment. He saw no despair in Howard's azure eyes. The next instant, he felt his right arm, which held the staff, being tightly gripped. Howard successfully fooled the wizard. At the moment he thought he had won, the arbitrator launched a surprise attack, seizing the wizard's arm. The blue-robed psychic turned pale with fright. He raised his left claw, intending to blast the golden-haired noble away with psychokinesis, but the arbitrator was faster. When Howard seized the wizard's arm, he pulled him forcefully towards himself. The blue-robed psychic lost his balance, and his spell failed. His neck was tightly locked by the arbitrator. "I judge you, death." Howard's tone was grim, and he put force into his arm. With a crisp snap, the wizard's head was twisted off. The golden-haired noble raised his arm, pressing the drill hard against the wizard's back of the head. A moment later, after confirming the wizard's death, the arbitrator released his arm and threw the corpse down. At the same time, Howard felt something dissolving within him, merging with his own spirit. Chapter 50. Thierry's path as a warrior. After Howard's thrilling kill of the sorcerer, he didn't stop. Feeling as if he had become a true arbitrator, he aimed his heavy logging gun at the mutants, condemning them to death. Seeing the blue-robed psyker killed, the mutants' morale plummeted. They immediately fell into chaos, scrambling to flee. "Kill them all. Don't let a single one escape." The arbitrator roared, and the workers instinctively obeyed his command, launching an attack on the mutants. After the battle, the blonde nobleman picked up his communicator and loudly called for his appointed deputy. "Yaxon! Yaxon!" Receiving no response, Howard had a suspicion. He shouted to the dozen or so foremen walking towards him. "Follow me." The foreman didn't hesitate for a moment, following behind the arbitrator. Meanwhile, in Luke Bo Hive City, Thierry once again encountered a powerful opponent, a blue-robed individual with sharp eagle claws comparable to a chainsword, whose attacks were incredibly strange. Every one of his attacks seemed to be anticipated by his opponent. He was like a puppet on strings, only able to follow the rhythm of his blue-robed enemy. The enemy's attacks always came precisely in the intervals after his own attacks ended. Thierry knew that the enemy wasn't like Ning Lu, who fully grasped the way of Osbervaya, but rather relied on witchcraft. To kill him, I must exceed the limits of his foresight. The warrior gripped the power sword in his hand, his eyes gleaming with fighting spirit. "He is not my king, I can definitely do it." Thierry lunged forward, releasing his combat instincts for the first time since he began wielding a sword. The warrior's slash, unrestricted by the way of Osbervaya, made the power sword crackle as it cut through the air, striking towards the blue-robed man's right shoulder. The blue-robed man's mind didn't show his opponent's attack like before. His bird-like eyes rotated rapidly. The colored iris expanded like the aperture of a camera lens. Conversely, his pupils rapidly constricted. The blue-robed man quickly dodged sideways. The power sword grazed his body as it struck, and the crackling disintegration field tore apart his blue robe, revealing the dense array of eyes on his chest. Although he still hadn't wounded his opponent, the warrior's confidence surged. He knew his idea was correct. Thierry stepped forward and withdrew his sword, dodging the grabbing left claw, then swung his sword in a horizontal sweep. The warrior's attacks were like a surging tide, each wave higher than the last. He no longer thought, as he used to, about how to use the way of Osbervaya to strike his opponent. Yet, every one of his strikes still contained the way of Osbervaya. 14 years of practice had long since integrated Osbervaya into his body, making it his instinct. The warrior's superhuman agility overwhelmed the blue-robed man's foresight, faster than the limit of his mutated eyes to track movement. After 9 consecutive strikes, Thierry integrated the thrust of the first principle and the weak point attack of the 23rd principle into a single lunge. The power sword pierced the largest, most disgusting eye in the center of the enemy's chest. With a piercing shriek, the searing energy of the disintegration field incinerated the disgusting mutated body. Thierry twisted his wrist, and the power sword rotated, grinding every eye to pieces. As he withdrew his sword, understanding dawned on him. Before, I had always been practicing, trying to integrate the way of Osbervaya like my king, but I could never do it. Today, in this moment of crisis, I unintentionally succeeded. I am not a sword-fighting servitor replicating sword skills, but a warrior who faces a strong enemy, still believes in himself, and finds the key to victory. As Thierry thought this, he immediately felt his weary body fill with strength, and the power sword in his hand seemed to merge with him. Having found his own path as a warrior, he immediately swung his power sword and charged into the crowd of mutants. At the same moment, Howard finally followed the passage and found his regiment. As soon as he arrived at the scene, he discovered that the passage had been blown into a large crater, the tracks were destroyed, and the train had plunged to the lower level. The blonde nobleman led the workers into the battlefield, then immediately ran into a middle-aged nobleman dressed in luxurious clothes. "It's you, Bagush. You traitor, how dare you betray my lord?" Bagush was greatly surprised to see the arbitrator. "Howard, you're not dead." "Impossible. The Harbinger said he would personally inflict punishment upon you." "Could it be?" "No, impossible. The Harbinger possesses power gifted by the God of Wisdom. How could he fail?" The arbitrator gave a cold laugh. "Traitor, die." He raised his heavy logging gun and pulled the trigger. Bagush was instantly riddled with holes. After clearing out the traitor's private soldiers and the mutants, Howard found Yaxon. Yaxon, with his straight nose and resolute face, quickly walked up to the commander and spoke with a tone of guilt. "Sir, on my way here as ordered, I encountered Bagush. He proposed joining the squad. I failed to detect the traitor's despicable trick. The train exploded midway, and I was held up." Howard nodded slightly. The moment he saw Bagush, he had already deduced the general course of events. "You bear responsibility, but you cannot be entirely blamed. You must reflect deeply and not make the same mistake next time." "Understood, sir." Ning Lu, returning to Vostronia, did not immediately go back to the hive city he controlled. He trusted Howard and Thierry's abilities, they could withstand the mutant attacks. His gaze was not limited to his own base but encompassed all of Vostronia. To achieve this goal quickly, he had to win the support of Kivior-2, the Sage of Altar 1. Just as the casting lord of Mars wielded far greater influence within the entire Mechanicus than casting lords of other casting worlds, the Sage of Altar 1 in Vostronia was also the leader of the local tech priests. He looked down at Mikhailusk Hive City from his aircraft. This largest hive city in Vostronia was like a mountain, with nest towers piercing the hazy clouds, and densely packed buildings resembling a steel forest. The aircraft landed in the Mechanicus's docking area between the two tallest nest towers. Ning Lu, accompanied by Rosicky and Wojciech, arrived at Altar 1. A moment later, Ning Lu met Kivior-2, the sage dressed in red robes with no flesh on his body. He first requested confirmation of the agreement. "Sage, I have come to obtain the star charts as per our previous agreement." Kivior-2's faceplate lit up, and a mechanical synthesized voice sounded. "Initiating identity verification program. Identified as contracting party King Ning Lu. Requesting exchange of information regarding contractual obligations." Wojciech immediately took out a data slate and brought up the page. Two beams of light shot from the sage's faceplate, scanning the data slate's page from top to bottom. According to the aforementioned contractual obligations, all star charts possessed by the various altars of Vostronia shall be provided to King Ning Lu. Saying this, his mechanical tentacles delved into his red robe, then pulled out a chip. Delivering contractual obligation, data chip containing star charts. Wojciech took the chip, inserted it into the data slate, and quickly reviewed it. After confirming its accuracy, he nodded to Ning Lu. With the star charts in hand, Ning Lu looked at Kivior-2. "Sage, the transaction is complete. Now it's time to discuss the mutant uprising. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.